it's thinking. We got the little spinning wheel. Oh, you're live, and I got a picture. There we are. Hello, everyone.
Excellent.
Welcome to Talking Heads, episode 419, your once-weekly live show for the latest in beer and tech news. I'm Jeff, and I'm joined by a special guest tonight. You want to introduce yourself, my good friend?
Hey, thanks for having me on the show, Jeff. My name is Chris. Some of you might know me as HoneyBadger from the TrueNAS forums. Despite the meme, the HoneyBadger actually does care. He cares about your data and about safety of it. So by all means, that's why I'm here. Jeff said, hey, come on, let's bust some ZFS myths. Tell us what's going on with TrueNAS. What are you guys doing in the past, in the future? What's your plans? So yeah, glad to be here. I've been a big fan for a while. You're responsible for both of the P4s that exist in my cloud gaming server. I got them thankfully right when the video came out, before the prices spiked. So
excellent.
Yeah.
I am responsible for so many P4 sales on eBay. What's nice is I do have an affiliate link to eBay, and I think at last count I had sold something like 400 or 500 P4s over the lifetime of those couple of videos that I did on them.
That is impressive.
So yeah,
they are great little cards. It's basically like a 1080 that went through the wash on high heat. And,
Yep.
They come out pretty well.
Little shrinkage, but
Yep.
they still work great. Anyway, welcome to Talking Heads. Thank you all so much for joining us on this Wednesday night, or in podcast form over on Spotify or wherever your favorite podcasts are found. We do drink alcohol in the show, and if you're drinking along with us, alcoholic or not, let us know in the chat, and we'll see if we can give some early show shout-outs before we get this show on the road. If you like free content on YouTube and you want to help support the channel, there's a couple of ways you can do that. Head on over to patreon.com/craftcomputing. Give me a follow, and the bonus to that is you get exclusive access to my Discord server. You can chat with myself as well as all the other hosts from Talking Heads. Heck, even HoneyBadger is on over there. And that is always a fantastic time. Lots of people hanging out through the week. There's about 1,100 active users on there, and it's fantastic. The reason I ask you to pay is it keeps the trolls on the other side of the moat. So it's a community that is actually dedicated to be there and wants to be there and wants to build a good community, not just, hurl insults at each other. It's awesome. I recommend it. You can also go to craftcomputing.store. We've got pint glasses, whiskey stones, bottle openers, all of it designed and made right here in-house. I have laser cutters in my garage. If you place an order, I go and laser cut the glass and then drop it in a box and ship it to you. That's how it works. It's a glorified Etsy store, but it is really, really high-quality merch. So, craftcomputing.store. I need to get you a glass.
Yeah, I was going to say, it looks like we got our first beer comment in the chat. He says he's drinking Atomic Duck IPA.
Ooh. Excellent, excellent.
Yeah.
Is that, what's the brewery down in Vegas? Is that Avery? Avery Brewing? I think that might be the Atomic Duck. Hold on. Oh, no, that Avery's Boulder. Where's Atomic Duck? I want to say it's out of Vegas. Yeah, Abel Baker. There we go. Nailed it. I knew I'd seen that one. I've been to that brewery, and I've had Atomic Duck at the brewery, and it is fantastic. So, excellent choice.
I see the comment there called out from Green Protagonist. I've been talking with you in Discord a lot. I'm envious of that, giant ducted blower you got going on for your P4s in your setup. Very impressive. Unfortunately, my Bazzite testing is not going as well as I'd hoped. For whatever reason it is, Bazzite doesn't seem to like the P4s as well as some of the other cards. So I might just try like a stock Ubuntu or something like that, not a canned distro. Yeah,
Pop! OS also has, I guess, pretty amazing support for it as well. So if you don't want stock Ubuntu, Pop! OS is another great option for that.
Yeah, cool.
Let's see. Michael's got a Cigar City Brewing Madro Brown Ale, 5.5%. That sounds awesome. Let's see. Green is also having 10 ounces of coffee, raw sugar, non-dairy French vanilla. That's totally allowed as well. As for me, I've got a couple of choices tonight. I think I'm going to start... tough call. I'm going to go with Alvarado Street Brewing, Tayberry Cream, Imperial Sour, with Tayberry, Blackberry, Raspberry, and Vanilla. So, something a little out of left field tonight, but that one was just kind of calling my name. 9% by the way. So nice, and it's a true sour ale. It's not like a jammy sour like we've been seeing very popular lately. So it's not like trying to eat a berry cobbler in beer form.
We got a question here from James Steinbreaker. He says, "What is this P4 we keep talking about? That's obviously not a Pentium 4, Jeff. What are we talking about? Let's."
That is the NVIDIA Tesla P4, and if you give me about 6 seconds here, 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, 6 1,000, and I'm back. That right there is a Tesla P4. It is a half-height, half-length server GPU, blower-style GPU, so it needs chassis airflow inside of a server. But this is a GP102 GPU die. It is 104, excuse me. It is the same exact GPU die in the 1080 and the 1070 Ti. It is only a 70-watt TDP card, so it's a little bit lower power, but they can still do 1500 megahertz pretty easily on boost clocks with just a little bit of tuning. So you can get 85% of the way to the performance of a 1080 in a card that is this big. And if you put 2 or 3 of them into a server, you can get some pretty awesome gaming performance out of one of these cards and stream it to a handheld. Or let's say you want a little bit more power out of your Steam Deck. You can run a VM on a server with a P4 on it, stream it to your Steam Deck, and quadruple your performance. So they are pretty killer little cards, and actually they've gone way down in price again. I think they are back down into like the $70 or $75 range. Fantastic value.
I was just looking at them. I think it's set. I got 7850 with a PWM blower and a 3D printed clap on the back there for it.
Oh,
so
that's pretty
great.
great.
A pretty good deal.
Yeah.
The reason they're dropping down now is because NVIDIA is, of course, shedding support for anything older than Turing in the 590 drivers.
Yep.
So.
Yep. But yeah, they're a lot of fun to play with. If you do things with Proxmox, VMs, any kind of thing like that. Also fantastic transcoding cards. If you have like a Plex server or Jellyfin or something like that, they do, I believe, something like 20 H.264, X.265 streams because they have dual encoders on them, and NVIDIA unlocked. Oh no, it's 16 because it's 8 per. 8 per encoder. So you could do 16 1080 or 4K streams off of this one little card.
Yeah, they're pretty good for that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good times.
Hey, yeah, speaking of handhelds, you want to take that segue there, Jeff?
Absolutely.
Handheld news?
Absolutely. So last week on the channel, we covered a little bit of a kerfuffle between Bazzite and GPD, one of the original manufacturers of handheld gaming devices. And I need to do a bit of a retraction. As it turns out, I didn't have in the entire story yet, although at the same time, neither did Bazzite or GPD. But I jumped the gun and I flat out blamed GPD for this confusion. GPD, at the end of December, made a statement publicly that said, we will be officially supporting Bazzite on our handhelds moving forward, including starting to ship Bazzite on our handhelds. Also, Bazzite will be supporting GPD devices moving forward as well. GPD has shipped Bazzite sample devices of all of our upcoming and previous devices that we would like them to support, and they are fully on board. To which Bazzite said, what?
They said, that's news to us.
Yeah, and GPD was directing support traffic to their own Discord server for any Bazzite related support, and GPD's done similar things before. Like they jumped the gun on SteamOS announcements and were directing people to HoloISO when HoloISO wasn't aware of it. And I thought this was exactly the same behavior. It turns out, in a statement from Bazzite themselves, it turns out that a former team member from Bazzite was in communication with GPD using his personal email account and likely received GPD devices without authorization and without the knowledge of the Bazzite team. So basically taking GPD for a ride on potentially getting free devices or promising things that he obviously couldn't deliver as a former team member of Bazzite. So the story is way more interesting now. And definitely not the fault of GPD in any way, shape, or form. Like I said, it sounds like they were taken for a ride in this whole situation. And as I'm an upstanding journalist and I'm not afraid to be wrong or even correct myself when I am wrong, I would like to issue an apology to GPD for jumping the gun on this story. There was obviously more to it, and there it is.
Yeah. What is this responsible journalism on the internet thing, Jeff? This is completely new.
I know, right? Now, if I was truly a responsible journalist, I would have reached out to GPD for comment beforehand, although on the podcast, it's more of a back and forth kind of show. So it's just, hey, this was in the news, let's talk about it. It's not really like formal reporting. If I would make a dedicated video on this situation, absolutely, I should have reached out to GPD and things like that. Podcast's a little bit different format, in my opinion. But I'm happy to say that I was wrong.
We're kind of the comment section for the news feed here.
Exactly. We're seeing the news come in the same as you, and we're just kind of reacting honestly to it. But like I said, I was wrong, and I'm happy to know that I was wrong. That this wasn't GPD with a, already a situation they probably making another oops. Yeah. So, yeah. Honesty on my news podcast? How dare you?
That's not allowed.
Yeah.
This is the internet. Everybody should be upset over everything and never apologize. That's
right?
how it works, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I should have doubled down. I should have said, well, GPD might have been taken for a ride, but they should have known better. Like, I'm supposed to be angry guy up here, right?
Exactly.
No. Like I said, I'm happy to know it was something as simple as
an innocuous mistake. Well, I mean, it sounds a little bit more sinister when you say, hey, there's a former employee using his personal email to get devices from them. Like, okay, well, there's probably some layers to this, and we'll want to see how this all unfolds and wait for comments from both sides before we go in there.
Yeah. Bazzite has said they will not be making any further statements on the situation. They were a former employee, and as far as I understand, will probably remain a former employee. But they said he's not our employee anymore, so it's none of our business anymore. But that's the situation, and we're happy to have cleared it up. So
well, that's good.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Skull says, hedonism bot, I apologize for nothing.
Yeah. Of course not. Yeah. Well, that's good news, I guess, to hear that they're, figuring it out. Can I be a former employee? Former employee of what? I mean, it's pretty easy to become one, but it's harder to come back from that.
Yeah.
It's kind of a one-way.
Yeah,
one-way street for a lot of things.
Yeah. If anything, I wouldn't be using Bazzite for a reference if I was him anymore.
No, probably a bad idea.
Looking for a future employer.
Yeah. I see a lot of people are going back and forth. Again, I think we got another P4 convert in the making in the chat here for James.
Excellent. Yeah, join us, James. It's they're a lot of fun. As Green says, if you're looking for just a pure transcode card, something that you just stick in a Plex server. Right now, the winner out there is the Intel A310, specifically the Sparkle Eco.
Eco.
Which is their card in the same form factor as this, but it does have a fan on board. That card is 35 watts and supports AV1 encoding.
Yeah. Now, there's a couple important notes. Is that Sparkle Eco was not always the perfect choice for two reasons. One of which was in the initial manufacturing runs, the shroud prevented you from getting to the screw to remove the full height bracket and swap to a low height one.
Yep.
So that was problem number one. Problem number two was they had issues with fan ramp in the initial revisions of the firmware. That was fixed with newer cards. You can flash that newer firmware in there. I believe it goes with the Intel driver, like the ARC package that you download will actually flash the new driver there.
Yeah.
If you're running it in Linux, people have divined a way to, you can either create a VM, IOMMU your card to it and run your patch in Windows, or you can basically extract that firmware file from your Windows installer and push it to the card in Linux.
Yep.
So, but great cards now.
Yeah. That's what I'm running for all my transcode needs. If anyone's been following along with my microcloud project, I've got two of my nodes in that system running A310s, each with a Plex server on it. So if one of the nodes goes down, Plex stays up, because that's kind of important with my house and family and friends. So yeah, we are running redundant Plex servers in my house.
A redundant array of Plex.
Yeah.
That's pretty neat.
And that all works great, but I do have one of the early run A310s and one of the later run ones where they drilled a hole and then put like a little plastic plug in the shroud so you can get to that screw. I didn't know about that at first, and so I took apart my I'm trying to take the bracket off, and I'm like, why the hell is this not? Oh, there's another screw. Why is it under the shroud? And so I had to disassemble the entire card, which means taking the fan off, new thermal paste, new pads. Like, it's a whole deal to get that one disassembled. Luckily, the second one that I bought has the little plug on it, so nice and easy.
Yeah. All right. I'm seeing a few questions. I'm seeing somebody popping in here. I think I've seen you in our YouTube comments before there, Rhiannon, talking about the recycle bin for SMB as well as the Unix permissions. Like Unix permissions, we're not forcing ACLs. You can use your traditional, octal Unix permissions on a data set. You just have to set it that way. You can use those, so we haven't taken it away. The reason that the ACLs, the NFS v4 style ACLs are becoming more common is because we want to. That's necessary for like mixed mode SMB NFS shares. It tends to be a little bit more granular than the traditional Unix octals, but you can still use them if you want. Recycle bin is a little bit more complicated. That one actually did get pulled out by one of our Samba developers, basically because it had odd interaction with snapshots. There were permissions issues. Basically somebody could put a file into the recycle bin, and because the recycle bin was common across a share, not at a permission level, everything's going into this like dot recycle effectively, and somebody else is going in there and fishing it out. So it was potentially like exposing things like that, really bad edge cases. And again, part of it, a lot of people say, oh, TrueNAS is for home. Well, it's we develop for enterprises too. They get really mad when you have things that can do end runs around auditing, and they basically scrub those out. They're like, hey, that can't exist. We looked at that and we're like, hey, we agree. So I know it's a bit of a pain to not have a recycle bin in there, and if somebody like accidentally deletes a file, you got to go into a snapshot to pick it up. But hey, snapshots are plentiful, cheap, and really easy to do.
Yeah. And
as long as you don't stack like 1,000 of them on top of it, you really don't have a significant performance impact.
Yeah. Recycle bin, like I think exactly like you said, is nice, but I think if you're running ZFS, you should be enabling snapshots anyway, even if it's just 2 or 3 of them, so you can go back 2-3 days or whatever you set your policy to, because that takes up almost nothing as far as space. It takes almost nothing as far as resources. You get all the benefits of a recycle bin without having to manage a separate recycle bin.
Yeah, you can refer the snapshot or recycle bins to the snapshots. Snapshots are only overkill until you really need them, and the benefit of a snapshot is it's immutable in that sense. Like you can try to say, oh, I throw something in the recycle bin and you delete it. Well, now it's gone for good. If you have a snapshot, you can delete it off that main one, but then you go, well, I can pull it back out of the snapshot. There's no way I can destroy that unless my snapshot expires.
Right.
what we'll often do for a lot of our enterprise customers is we have this like rolling chain of snaps where they're taking snaps every 15 minutes for an hour, every hour for 6 hours, every 6 hours for a day, every day for a week, and every week for a month. It cascades down like that. So the further you go from, epoch time, the less granularity you have. But very quickly you can pull back every, 15-minute or whatever granularity. If you go back an hour, it's okay, you're pulling it every hour. Maybe you're pulling the copy they worked on this morning. But it keeps your total snapshot count down, means you're wrapping up and consolidating them fairly quickly. But that kind of stuff is really invaluable, and that's one of the major reasons that ZFS is so powerful, is because you have all that snapshotting right there.
Yep. Yeah. No. Whenever I would deploy ZFS systems over to my old enterprise clients, I think you summed it up perfectly. You do every hour for a week, every week for a month, and we did every month for a year. So that means at any point in time within the last 12 months, I can go back and pull up a specific version of a file if someone deletes it, moves it, loses it, whatever. And that always worked very, very well for us. One way we kept it from getting a little bit out of hand was we also set our snapshots to only capture during the business day, because the businesses that I was working with aren't running 24 hours a day. They're businesses that are operating 8 to 5. And so you set your snapshot policy from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Cool, we just cut out 13 snapshots that we don't need to take during the day.
Exactly. Even if they were going to be primarily empty, it's still the metadata, the overhead of having to walk that tree there.
Exactly.
Still going on this conversation about, what about when I delete a bunch of stuff? Can you recover the space when you're using snapshots? Well, no, not until that snapshot expires.
Right.
Because the idea is you say, hey, if you're taking a snap every hour and you expire it after a day, you don't get that full space back until that initial snapshot where the deletion happens expires. So, hey, I mean, don't worry about not fully understanding. I mean, ZFS is complicated. Yeah. It's one of those things where, oftentimes you're going to hear it probably many times on here where the answer to something is, yes, but.
Yes, but.
Or yes, but. It'll be like, yes, you can do that, but. I think I said it last week on my own show about juggling chainsaws. It's a great it's not a great idea. You can do it. I can do it. I'm probably going to lose a limb and it's going to end horribly. But I could probably do it for about 3 to 5 seconds.
Yep.
That's about it.
Yep.
We got a big question here and a donation from Not a Professional. Sounds like he's a professional. Says, I've heard if I don't use ECC RAM in my TrueNAS build, I will be tormented by swarms of wasps, afflicted with boils, disowned by my parents and dog. Also, my data will all evaporate. Please confirm/deny. Deny. There are people who run without ECC RAM all the time. I am not one of them personally. All my TrueNAS systems run ECC memory. I've even had desktops that have run ECC memory. I'm not using one right now, but all of my systems run ECC. And it's not for me so much about data safety as the fact that if a stick of RAM starts to go bad, it is going to sell itself out in a heartbeat. And I'm not going to worry about, hey, is it maybe my RAM? Is there something that's like having an issue elsewhere? I just go, no, I saw a machine check error show up in the log and it pinpointed the exact stick of RAM that's failing. So I know that I get to kick that one out. When I go to RMA it, I send a machine check error log back to the vendor of that RAM, and they typically don't argue with those. They say, okay, yeah, this guy's bad. You're getting a new one. Yeah, but we have several people, even in the engineering department at TrueNAS, they are running non-ECC, and believe it or not, some of them are running Realtek NICs on their TrueNAS machines. So what used to be complete heresy under BSD is not quite so heretical anymore under Linux.
Yeah. I have gone back and forth with ECC on my personal machines as far as TrueNAS goes. I've ran with, I've ran without. We'll get into this conversation a little later with some other features with TrueNAS about like what is the recommended or minimum specs or whatever else. But then the minimum specs are often written with enterprise environments in mind, with production environments in mind. As a Homelab user, you have different requirements, you have different needs and different criteria for what's acceptable. On the enterprise side of things, the reason they say ECC memory is required is if you're doing a if you're holding a massive database, a bit flip can be the difference between your data being secure and not secure, or being kept or not accurate, or whatever the case may be. At home, if I'm storing 7 terabytes of Plex media, it's fine if I flip a bit. It's not going to matter. And so it is, what is your expectation of the system? What is your expectation for the data integrity? And what is your fault allowance within that system?
Exactly. You drop a frame on your Plex server, or you get one corrupted pixel there. Yeah. Not a big deal. If you remember what I said about the audit trail and enterprise customers not liking that, they don't like, hey, this got corrupted. Bad idea. Yeah. Yeah. Comment here, he says, I'd rather have backups before ECC. Why not both?
Why not both?
Why not both? Have them both. You know?
Yep.
It's pretty nice. Yeah, we got some people here advocating, say, I don't use ECC and it works great. No issues for the past 2 years. That's one thing I want to call out here. People say, you know, oh, there was the scrub of death rumor here where ECC would actively corrupt the data on your disk. Just not possible. Like, the amount of mathematics that would have to get wrong there is probably not going to happen before the heat death of the universe. So
that's one of my favorite phrases to explain the likelihood of an event.
Mathematically impossible is a pretty good one. I will sooner win a 8-figure lottery than somebody's pool would destroy itself. For that. Yeah, got non-ECC. Yeah, okay, and I see Vince there from Circle Rewind advocating for BSD, as I expected him to come in here and do. That's great that Realtek works there. Send iSCSI traffic to it over a FreeBSD system with the a default inbox driver, and let me know how the memory corruption works, because that's one of the reasons that we advocated against it there. And we actually pulled the driver out of TrueNAS, I think in version 12.0 update 3. I think we actually dropped the driver out by default, and we said, hey, if you want this back on, you can use it as long as you're not doing iSCSI. Use SMB, use NFS, knock yourself out. Use iSCSI, it's basically it's gonna blow up on you, and we don't want that.
Have you had any experience yet with Realtek's new affordable 10 gig driver? Have you seen that chip coming out?
I have not. That's is that the 8169?
Yeah,
is that
one?
Something
like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen it. Believe us, we've seen it internally. As soon as it showed up, I said we are going to have people wanting to run this thing.
Yes, you are. Yep.
One of the challenges with it is because of the cadence of our updates and cycles. Is as soon as new hardware drops, it's like, hey, you're probably in for a minimum of a 6-month wait. Before it's going to land in TrueNAS, and that was the challenge when the ARC cards came out, when Blackwell landed. Even with just the revisions, we are building, the basis of this is on like a LTS Linux kernel with a long-term enterprise supported storage appliance. We can't necessarily throw everything in there. Now, there is a great little command that you could put into TrueNAS that will let you break pretty much anything you want. It is install dev tools. That will give you like a full GCC tool chain and everything to absolutely let you bend, twist, maul, and mutilate TrueNAS into whatever you want. But at that point, the warranty is if you break it, you get to keep the pieces. They will pretty quickly close any bug ticket you submit from a system that has dev mode on. The first thing they will say is, can you repro this on a system that is not have dev mode enabled?
Yeah. So, can you give us one you didn't F with first?
Pretty much. If you want to do that, by all means. But the more you F around, the more you find out. And you can find out pretty quickly when you start putting random K mods in there.
Green sends over another $5. Thank you very much, Green. People are running to Unraid and Zima OS for ease and app support. Are there friendly solutions for online connectivity, PTOP, file sharing, transfer, etc.? I don't know if you've messed much with Zima OS, but they're trying to make like a who's the other one that's doing this? Basically, like a virtual desktop style interface where you get a desktop and then it's like file browser or window browser kind of set up for the NAS, but all of their plugins are application based. And so if you want to install Plex, you double click on Plex and you click install and it runs. But in the background is just a Debian-based system and ButterFS and a couple of other things. So it's a really nice shell on top of everything. Not that TrueNAS isn't a nice shell, but it's can be a little intimidating at times.
Yeah, and I'll give you that, is that it is a little bit more challenging. Somebody says, what about Ugreen? I guess Ugreen would be another one in that space.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the enterprise origins of TrueNAS showing there, in that it's designed to be that a little bit more of an enterprise businessy kind of focus system.
Yeah.
The apps came later with the advent of Linux and Scale and some of the early, friction there when we went, Docker, Kubernetes,
Right.
Okay, Kubernetes, okay, never mind Docker. Just and it's gotten a lot better with Docker as far as the friendliness of everything going on here. Works pretty well. I guess the initial challenge people said, was, hey, why did you do that whole app shift? And it was a real pain, and I liked, why'd you start on Kubernetes if you were going to Docker? Because initially the question was, do we use Kubernetes or Docker? And the choice was Kubernetes. Now, what happened there was initially TrueNAS Scale at the time was intended to scale out.
Mm-hmm.
It was going to have ZFS on top of GlusterFS. So you would be able to glom multiple TrueNAS systems together, have a shared storage plane, and then obviously you have Kubernetes on top of that for a shared compute plane. You're going to have a nice hyper-converged cluster all built on top of open source.
Yeah.
Well, and then GlusterFS was deprecated. And, we weren't really able to take that on ourselves to say, hey, we're going to maintain another entire file system. We already do a lot of maintenance. We have a couple guys with commit bits for ZFS, and they do a hell of a lot of heavy lifting there. So we said, unfortunately, we can't sustain that. So once the GlusterFS pieces were dropped, we kind of looked at Kubernetes and going, this is a heck of a lot of layers and complexity to just run as a single system.
Yeah.
So then we said, well, let's switch to Docker. And we did, I think we did a pretty good job writing up a tool chain in there to port everybody's Kubernetes apps over to Docker in that migration path. Now that we're here, it works pretty well. And yeah, F's in the chat for Gluster. I'm really sad about that. I was hoping that we'd be able to make like a real scale out kind of Dell Isilon competitor of that. Would have been pretty nice.
Yeah, no, especially with IX, with all of the true HA systems that you guys do and everything else, that would have been just a killer, essentially plug and play package on the enterprise side of things, where a lot of other high availability type systems are very much DIY depending on who the customer is that's buying them. So I was excited when you guys were talking about the early Scale days.
Yeah, there's Vince giving me some more flack. Yes, apps and jails and plugins existed on Core and FreeBSD too, but there is definitely a much smaller audience that was using jails, plugins, apps, the equivalent of those on BSD versus the Docker containers, things like that.
Homelab Hazards sends over $2. Thank you very much, sir. He's one of my other plug and play hosts here on the podcast. That's Matt. Speaking of BSD, are you Scale or Core at home? Of course I'm Scale. Yeah.
As a community edition, as we now call it.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, Scale across the board here as well. For quite a while, I was running Core and Scale. I made the jump over to full Scale with 23.10, so that would have been Cobia back in the day. That was when I made my jump. But initially, I was still kind of doing a lot of stuff with iSCSI, and the SCST target on Scale was not quite mature enough at that point. I said, hey, it's not the apples to apples that I wanted. 23.10 was where it started to be good enough, and then I went, okay, I'll move things over to here. I dealt with manually tuning up the ARC levels before we made that the default in 2404 Dragonfish. Yeah. So Scale across the board.
Yeah, I think I moved to Scale early 22. So it was. I know it was
the 2202. Was it like Angelfish, the OG?
It might have been. Yeah, I went. This is obviously the direction they want to go, and I want to see what it's about. And I think I moved my home server over at that point because that was right after we're gonna deprecate the FreeNAS name and roll out this other thing. And I think I jumped right on board. So I'd have to check my video publish history and see when exactly I installed it, but I think I made a video on it. So Yeah, it's been a while, and never looked back. Never, yeah.
One of the big reasons, and a lot of people say, well, why did you abandon FreeBSD? And it's like, well, we're not really abandoning FreeBSD. I mean, Chris and I, maybe we'll find a link to it. I can drop it in the comments after this video is done, where we actually talked about why we did this. But one of the big challenges of it was, the hardware support on BSD it's good, but one of the big things everyone was leaning into NVMe. Now, NVMe hot remove on BSD works great. It's fantastic. Sleep is amazing there. Wake, not so much. So we were having people where you'd say, well, you can pull a NVMe drive out of this unit, but you put it back in, you're going to have to reboot it to get it reinitialized.
Right.
That's not exactly fantastic. Linux, on the other hand, well, it just worked.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yep.
So one of the reasons.
Yeah, all that hot swap stuff is very, very mature on that side of the aisle. Brian sends over 25 Canadian dollars. Thank you so much. Much appreciated. Dev mode is nice, but IX removed the apt repo from Fangtooth 2504, which is only 8-month old, so no apt-get works at all. On the forum, I only got one response that said I should patch and restart my NAS every other week.
That's an interesting response there. If you want to drop me a link to that doesn't sound like the right kind of response. But I mean, the challenge is that the apt repos that we have up are really there for development, and we do pretty quickly shift away from, especially like 2504 would have been in development back at the end of 24, early 25 would have been when that happened. So dev mode is intended for development, not so much just enabling apt on any random system.
Right.
So it's kind of one of those things that's nice, but yeah. It says I don't want to check which TrueNAS version I'm running. I've got 188 days uptime. Oh, okay, that's a good one.
Yeah, you should update your system.
Yeah. One final question here I'm going to pick out from Rhiannon. It says, NVMe over Fabric for ESXi when? Or should I migrate to Proxmox? Well, you should migrate to Proxmox anyways, so that you're not giving Broadcom money. But the question of NVMe over Fabric in ESXi is dependent on... actually, Brian, the current version would be Goldeye, not Fangtooth. So 2510. So ESXi support for NVMe over Fabrics is dependent on the NVMe target in Linux kernel driver supporting what's called fused commands in NVMe over Fabric. That is basically conditional execution. So you put A and B together. You say, if A evaluates to true, then execute B. Then that's a fused command. The NVMe target in the inbox one for Linux doesn't support that yet. It is something that we're very interested in, and it's something that our developers will say have a vested interest in supporting. So without being too exact on the timeline, you should expect it in 26.
We'll do one more question, and then we got time for an ad read, and I think Chris was going to step up and grab his beverage here, but we'll do this one real quick. Matt sends over another $5. Thank you very much, Matt. Can't wait for TrueNAS to support hot swap HBAs. I have a lot of M.2 to 6 SATA adapters that keep failing for some reason.
You're just trying to troll me now. You're going to tell me they're on a J Micron controller now, and there's one real SATA port, and the other one's behind a 1 to 5 port multiplier, aren't you?
Probably. Probably.
Yeah. We do support hot. Are you talking about hot plugging the actual HBA, like pulling it out of the PCI slot? Because, it is possible to hot plug PCI cards, but you have to actually power down the slot. You have to have a board that supports dropping the power lines to the lanes before you pull that card out.
And I'm not sure any M.2 slots support that natively.
Yeah, that's something that's a regular PCI form factor.
Yeah.
But as far as supporting hot swap cards, well, of course we do hot swap all the time. I got hot swap systems myself. I can go yank drives out, throw them in all the time. Mm-hmm. It's probably that your HBA itself doesn't support hot swap. So check on which controller is in there. If it's J Micron, again, shots fired here, but get rid of it. AS Media, the ASM 1164, 1166 ones are, pretty good on scale Linux based versions.
Yeah.
I think there was a weird like thing in there where they wouldn't enumerate more than a certain number of drives, or they were trying to enumerate all 32 virtual SATA ports and hanging up. That one got fixed, I think, at 2504.
Yeah.
But the AS Media controllers are okay in there. The Marvell cards, I think it was the 882, one of their long ones, like 882 ME912 or something, is okay.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you don't necessarily have to buy an LSI card.
Right.
You can use those. Just avoid port multipliers, whether it's command based or the FIS based switching. Avoid the hell out of those. They don't work well, and especially if you got one drive that's misbehaving on the back end of a port multiplier, it's basically going to hang up everything.
Yeah.
Just say no to port multipliers, folks.
All right, with that, I'll let you go grab your cider, and we've got an ad read to do, because today's video is brought to you, as always, by Meter. While I enjoy building out my home lab and have now spent nearly 20 years in professional IT, not every business has a Jeff working for them. Managing your own network infrastructure without a Jeff can be a challenge. Dealing with different vendors for firewalls, switching, Wi-Fi, and then when something goes wrong, it can grind your business to a halt. That's where Meter comes in. Meter delivers an all-in-one networking stack that delivers excuse me, I took my eyes off the words for a second and confused myself. Meter delivers an all-in-one networking stack that bundles everything you need into a single package, including high-speed wired and wireless networking, power delivery, firewall and routing, and even cellular, all in a single integrated solution that's built for performance and scalability. Meter handles everything you need, from network design, procurement, installation, and will even negotiate with ISPs to get you the best rates on internet connectivity. All of that shows up in a single cloud-based dashboard, giving you clear visibility into every layer of your network. You get the connectivity your business needs, all for a predictable monthly cost. Best of all, there's no upfront expenses. Meter ships you the hardware you need today and will automatically upgrade your hardware as time goes on, ensuring your users and your business always have the tools and connectivity they need. Whether you're starting a new business, expanding to new locations, or simply modernizing an aging network, let Meter take care of the hassle for you. Visit meter.com/craftcomputing to book a demo today. Again, that's meter.com/craftcomputing, and a huge thanks to Meter for sponsoring today's episode.
Excellent.
Thank you, Meter. I can drink for another day.
Yeah. So, I have went to my little basement fridge, and I picked up a Thornberry craft cider there. Had a tough time deciding which flavor. I'm a cider fan over beer.
Excellent.
Pretty moderate. It's only a 5.3. I didn't go for the vanilla bourbon, which is rocking, I believe, an 11.6.
Oh.
I figured I'd stay on the lighter side tonight.
Yeah. There's a cidery here over in Bend, Oregon, that's actually grown leaps and bounds over the last couple of years, called Two Town Cider House. They make a pair of ciders that are absolutely incredible. There's the Bad Apple, which is a 10% cider, and then they also have the Super Bad Apple, which is a 12% cider. They taste like apple pie crust. Like, they are cinnamony and brown sugar and deep and rich and dark and a little bit of like char burn to them. Yeah. God, they are so freaking good.
Yeah, this company has it. I can't remember what they call it exactly, but it's much the same. It's kind of like it's got those cinnamon undertones. It's not quite as sweet as an apple pie, but it's quite nice. Mm-hmm. Paired well with a Thanksgiving dinner kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. My wife has celiac disease, and so she's entirely gluten-free, no wheat, barley, or rye products at all, and so she can't drink beer. And so we do a lot of ciders, a lot of wines, a lot of liqueurs around here as well, and we've always got at least one or two super bads in the fridge, just because it's like, hey, want to party tonight? Okay, here's a 12%er. Let's go.
Yep, rock on. Alrighty. What do we say? Yeah, Matt here talking. He's saying, I don't know what AMD doesn't know what power states are, and I'll just unplug my PCIe at an angle. That way the power pins go out first. Looking to let the magical blue smoke out. I see.
Matt, so he's working on starting up a YouTube channel called Homelab Hazards. Matt reminds me of all the absolutely janky, insane ideas that I would have 15 or 20 years ago with hardware and would try it on my own. Hey, did you know you could double the power delivery if you just shunt this over to pin 7 on this? Or
shunt mods.
Yeah, exactly. And so if there is a cursed way to deploy hardware, Matt is 3 steps ahead of you with, I've already tried that. I let the magic smoke out of 4 different things. Here's why it doesn't work, but I did get it to work on number 5. It's fantastic, and I can't wait for him to actually get his channel up and actually going, because it's going to be some fun stuff. Jay sends over another $5. Thank you very much, Jay. Not a professional. I think I missed some TrueNAS lore. Can we get a rundown of which tech is which today? There's no longer a scale at all. So yeah, what is the actual timeline? Because obviously a lot of my longtime viewers, they remember FreeNAS. And in fact, FreeNAS was one of my first experiences with a non-Windows OS back in 2005, maybe?
That's about right.
Yeah. I want to say somewhere 04, 05. I had an old HP Celeron desktop that I wanted to have some shared files between my actual desktop and a laptop, and I'm like, hey, let's try this NAS product. That sounds fun. And installed FreeNAS for the first time.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
But yeah. So originally, I would probably brutalize his name, but gentleman Olivier was the one who created FreeNAS at the first time in the the 0 dot versions. I think my first one was like 0.64. And installed that one back in the day. So IX Systems, as that company, we took it over in 2009 to take over development of the FreeNAS project. And at that point, that was when FreeNAS 8. That was sort of when that one was coming out to say, hey, this is our new one that's got it's got ZFS on there as the primary one, or the only one.
Yeah.
We'll let you import your old UFS pool, but we'd really rather you go to ZFS. So in terms of like when the shift happened, it was 2021.
Yeah.
Where we said, hey, we're gonna unify. We started in 2020 to actually merge the code bases together, because back beforehand it was FreeNAS and TrueNAS were separate code bases. So we said, hey, that's just it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So we unified them in 12. And there was just TrueNAS 12, and it was Core and Enterprise. So Core was your free version, Enterprise was the paid one that went on our own hardware.
Yeah.
Then Scale was the one that was created, which was the Linux-based version.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Core and Scale ran in parallel for a while, and then basically what happened was Core was eventually sort of sunset. It's been put into long-term maintenance, and eventually is finally reaching the point where we're saying, hey, pretty much everybody should be running what formerly was called Scale and is now called either Community Edition, still Scale, still Linux-based, or Enterprise.
Yeah.
So those were the two. Yep.
Because prior to 2022, all of the releases were BSD based. And like you said, there were 2 different code bases. There was one for FreeNAS, which was the free open source community edition. Install on your hardware, do what you want. And then there was it used to be FreeNAS Enterprise, but then turned into TrueNAS Enterprise at some point down the line. I don't remember what year, but that was the IX Systems Enterprise version that had high availability as a function and a whole bunch of other things that was kind of designed around their hardware. Similar code base, but not the same code base. And then, you started unifying the code at some point. You switched over entirely to the TrueNAS name along the way. In 22, TrueNAS Core was still the BSD base, and then TrueNAS TrueNAS Scale was the Linux base. And then, now we have TrueNAS Community and TrueNAS Enterprise, which is all Linux.
Just going back, I saw another username here that twigged something earlier. DYH Chang, I think you've actually asked questions on the T3 podcast before, but I saw you asked a question saying, what was the biggest system I'd ever deployed? I think it was 11 petabytes. And it's for customer redacted, so I can't tell you, unfortunately.
Okay.
It's 11 petabyte system. Yeah.
Very nice.
So Jay follows up with, so scale is no longer intended to be a scale out NAS product because of the Gluster thing. Yes, unfortunately.
Yeah.
You can still do some scale out if you install MinIO on each node. MinIO is MinIO, which is a separate question. But you can scale out object with a clustered object store there. But unfortunately, there is no Gluster under the top of it where you can put ZFS on top. And I saw Vince's comments about, ZFS on Gluster is a horrible mess.
There were some really good ideas, and had Gluster continued, I think it would have turned into a very fruitful product. But that's also unfortunately the nature of open source is that XKCD comic where if you pull out one peg, the whole tower collapses. Gluster in this case was that peg that would have been really cool, but if it's no longer maintained and you don't have the people to jump in and take it over and things like that, yeah.
Yeah. People are asking Plex or Jellyfin in chat. He says Plex or Jellyfin.
Ooh.
Jellyfin. Jellyfin.
I am still on Plex, and
there are some good reasons to stay with Plex. The Jellyfin client on certain TVs, like the smart TVs, is not there yet.
Yeah.
None of my TVs are smart. My TVs are all very dumb. I have a number of NVIDIA Shield devices,
Excellent.
which I love.
Yep.
I think I have 2 of them to my left, these little guys.
Yep.
Love those. I have one of the regular ones, one of the larger Pro ones that you can put a SATA drive in.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Love those.
Yeah, we're a fully Roku house here. We have a bunch of dumb TVs. I have one smart TV that is not connected to the Wi-Fi in any way, shape, or form because it's a Samsung and it's a piece of garbage. So we have Rokus on all of our devices, and basically they run Plex 95% of the time. So they just start up. We go one click over. It's the top left icon on Roku. And for that reason, they just run great. They're inexpensive. That's all I'm doing with them is essentially running Plex. We've canceled all of our streaming services essentially here. I don't have anything that... we still do have an Amazon Prime membership, and so we still have Prime Video. And then I think because friend of a friend kind of thing, I think I have an HBO login. And we'll occasionally watch things on there. But that's really it. And I subscribe to Dropout. Because Dropout's great. Okay. I run Plex because I've been running Plex. And I have the lifetime membership, which, full disclosure, was given to me by Plex because I did a couple of things for them like 6 or 7 years ago.
I mean, it's different strokes. I mean, it's not a one size fits all solution. This isn't a holy war. You don't have to swear allegiance to one side or another. I got somebody says, I got Plex as a primary. I got Jellyfin as a backup for if the internet's down or something's going on.
Yeah.
People running MB. They're saying, hey, why not?
I've seen MB as well.
Take the third position.
Yeah. In fact, I've been actually considering because my entire Plex library is just on a TrueNAS server. It's not actually directly running. There's no reason in the world I could also fire up an MB or a Jellyfin and just point it at the same library.
Exactly.
And so I've been considering doing that as like a side project. Just kind of, hey, how does this work? And that's kind of the point of the whole microcloud system that I've got right now is I've got all these other nodes with a whole bunch of extra compute that if I want to just try something, I don't have to mess with my production boxes. I can just slide in a new node, install Proxmox, throw MB on it, done. And give it a whirl and not touch my actual servers that I use every single day.
Exactly. There's a difference between Homelab and home prod, and that's the important line: is who gets mad when it breaks.
Yes.
If it's not you that gets mad when it breaks, well, that's home prod. don't mess with it.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Your DNS, your DHCP, AdGuard, stuff like that. That lives in my home prod area.
Yep.
Don't mess with those.
The problem I went through is I run so much production in my Homelab, but I've also done so much consolidation that it's like, you know what? If I just threw a bunch of cores and a whole bunch of memory and a whole bunch of NVMe and a whole bunch of drives, I bet I could consolidate my entire server rack down to like 3 boxes. And I did. And I got down to like 550 watts of idle power draw at some point. And I had...
But that's just no fun.
Right.
That's just no fun. I have no reason for a microcloud. You better believe there's probably 3 of them on my eBay watch list right now, and I'm scheming how to get them into the country without paying, $500 a shipping.
Sorry, dinner order.
No worries.
Yep. But yeah, no, I consolidated everything down. Wendell over at level 1 dropped me a 64-core Epic Rome processor, and I'm like, sweet, let's run everything off of one box. And so I had virtualized TrueNAS on that box. I had all of my VMs running on that box. And the problem is, if I need to do anything to that box, everything dies.
Yep.
So now I have 8 nodes in a chassis, 4 of which are running production, but the other 4 nodes could be anything.
You can do whatever you want with them, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So that's been a lot of fun to get that whole system up and going. That, and it's 1 less U. It's actually 3 U instead of 4 U on that box, which is great. So
it's one of those weird things where it's like it's not quite a regular 4U. It's not a 2U. It's not a skinny little one. It's that middle ground.
Yeah.
But I think there's some 3U storage boxes from Supermicro that let you pack. I think they get 16 drives.
16
3U, which is pretty nice density.
Yep, which is actually that's the same density in the microcloud. The microcloud is a 16 bay array on front, and then
2 wired to each bay, right?
Exactly, yeah, and then 8 nodes in the back with 2 direct wired to each bay. And so, not great if you wanted to run, a storage server out of it, but really great if you wanted to run a high availability compute cluster. You can, it was really designed for like web servers and things like that in mind. So, but in
web
my
servers,
environment,
game servers, something like that.
Yeah, in my environment, it's perfect because I've got somewhere between 8 and 12 cores of compute on each node. I've got a graphics card in each node, so I've got full transcodability, encodability, and then I'm booting off of a pair of 1 terabyte SSDs on the front. I've also got on one of the nodes a pair of 8 terabyte SATA drives running Proxmox backup server, so it's all backed up internally to the same chassis, although they are separate nodes. So the only thing that's going to kill everything is a power supply failure. Yeah. And it just runs great.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a good way to do it, is like having the multiple arrays of, independent computers, never mind drives.
Right.
Good. Well, I mean, I think let's get into looking at a couple things here. People are talking about, there we go, YouTube sucks so bad. Well, unfortunate username for me to read on YouTube live, but he says, I purchased a TrueNAS M40 for work. It's been working well for the last 2 years, powering vSphere and now OpenStack alongside Ceph. Well, I'm glad to hear it's working out well for you. Thank you very much for supporting us. It lets us keep, everybody who buys Enterprise, when you do that, you're letting us keep giving away the free edition to everybody else who doesn't. So thank you very much for that. We greatly appreciate it. But yeah, like let's get into busting some of this like ZFS.
I was gonna say let's do some busting because that sounds like fun right now.
Absolutely. There's been a lot of this, what we call tribal knowledge that's run around. Maybe it used to be valid back in the day, or maybe it was one of those Wikipedia cytogenesis things where somebody wrote it on a blog once, it got picked up as a piece of authority, it got fed back around into Wikipedia, and then it just got reinforced over and over. So I mean, like we can run down the list of them, and I mean, start throwing them in the chat there if you've heard anything that you're like, hey, is this true about ZFS? We've done the ECC one, so we busted that one pretty quick.
I think let's start. How much memory does ZFS need?
How much memory? Yes.
Let's start there, because this one is actually rooted in some actual recommendations from IX Systems and TrueNAS, in that the recommendation on the official documentation used to be 8 gigabytes minimum, and then 1 gig per terabyte of whatever raw storage you have. And I've actually repeated that in video myself, 5, 6, 7 years ago as, this is what is recommended and this is what you should probably follow.
Yeah.
In reality, the reality has overtaken, I think, what those requirements were meant to be about. And so what's the reality today?
So, I mean, really what that is we say, 8 gigabytes is kind of, that's our floor. That's going to let you load every potential piece of our middleware, every, the skeleton of every service for sharing over all of the supported protocols all at the same time. And it's going to leave you a tiny little bit for your ARC, your adaptive replacement cache. The whole 1 gigabyte per terabyte thing is a general rule of thumb to talk about. You want to be able to keep not only your most important metadata, so your descriptors of like, hey, where does my stuff actually live on my VDEVs? But you also need that because your RAM is your primary source of performance for ZFS.
Yep.
It's your adaptive replacement cache. It's feeding that. So you say, hey, we need to put stuff in here, and then it's got to be big enough that you can actually let your data sit there and be hit more than once. Because if you have so little memory that you're just cycling out everything you throw in there as soon as it lands, you don't get the benefits of the insight. So you can say, is it 1 terabyte or 1 gig per terabyte? Is it 5 gigs per terabyte? It's very, very workload dependent. So if you're just doing, like you said, if you got, 7 terabytes of Plex media, or you got, 80 terabytes of Plex media or something, you can probably do that on 16 gigs, honestly, because your workload is so very much sequential. You can serve it all off the disks. You're not dependent on that memory to derive the performance you need. Now, if you're doing even 800 gigabytes, but it's all heavy-hitting VM stuff, you probably want 64 gigs in there.
Yeah. You beat me to the point. I was going to bring up the sequential, the Homelab use, the versus like productivity database VM as kind of the breaking point, because kind of like I said earlier, about what are your expectations for performance, what are your expectations for reliability, uptime, data integrity, whatever else, is a very much sliding scale, especially at the Homelab level. And if you're running TrueNAS in production with ZFS and you've got these massive SQL databases and they're running 24/7 doing finance traffic, you want 100% reliability, as little latency as possible, everything possible stored in L2 ARC. You want everything at the highest availability level that you can possibly get it, because that's how you make money, and any differences in that data is going to cost you money or time. And that's not good for your business. If I'm running a Plex library with 7 terabytes in it, and I'm streaming at most a 40 gigabyte 4K Blu-ray rip at RAW at, what is that?
150 megabit?
Yeah, I was saying
4K. Yeah, 4K is going to be like
4K, like 120. I was going to say megabit.
120 maybe. Depends if you got like that. Was that like that 724, the DTS audio?
Right. Yeah, but between 100 and 120. If you're on Lord of the Rings, maybe closer to 80, because holy crap, that's a long movie. It's a difference in expectations, and it's a difference in use case, and you don't need to store your entire Blu-ray of Lord of the Rings in L2 ARC to get good performance out to your Plex box.
Exactly. That's pointless.
So I shouldn't have gone out and bought all of this Optane DIMMs?
Oh, the Optane DIMMs are great, but use them for set them up in persistent memory mode.
Yeah.
Use them as your specials, your L2 ARCs, your SLOG devices.
Yep.
I'm actually seeing something from Vince here in the chat, and it's something that Chris and I actually called out on a previous podcast, where he says if you're running a database that does its own caching, you actually minimize the ARC. So there's actually a tunable you can set on a per dataset basis. Mm-hmm. It's called primary cache. So you do ZFS set primary cache equals, and it's either all metadata or none. You basically never want to say none. So it's all or metadata. So if you have a client system like a DB that is leveraging that data set that does its own caching, set it to only put your metadata in ARC, because it's going to cache itself on the client's, the client side, it'll be more intelligently able to do that. The exception to that, though, ZFS compression. Arc is compressed. So if you have really compressible data and you're getting like a 2-to-1 ratio by letting Arc compress it, okay, well, maybe you downplay your caching on the client side, let ZFS handle it. It's basically, you're going to have to test this stuff. Say, hey, is it better to have half as much fast cache on the client or twice as much slightly slower cache over the network through Arc?
Yeah.
Test the stuff.
It's almost like different use cases have different performance expectations and different tunables to make that use case a reality. Who would have thought?
No kidding. Things are changed differently. So somebody's calling you out for flexing your Optane DIMMs and stuff. I mean, let me just pull open my drawer of SSDs here. I might have a few spares kicking around. There you go. The most expensive thing in my drawer would be this, probably.
Oh, 96 gig DDR5 kit?
96 gigs of DDR5 CL, CL30.
Do you need some Optane DIMMs, Chris?
Just a few. Just a few. How many terabytes of Optane do you have for that?
That's about 2.8 or so. These are 128 sticks.
Lovely.
So I think there's 28 of them here. So
yeah,
ish.
Those are excellent. Yeah, people are now giving the Optane love in the chat. Yeah. The king is dead. Long live the king.
Exactly.
Somebody was asking in your Discord. They said, "Hey, what's going to be the substitute for Optane? Like, at the enterprise level, there's nothing that's going to be quite as good on that value for money for your home lab, your home prod user.
Yep.
We can't go out and buy like a Kioxia FL6 or a DAPU Store Accelerator 2. Those are what it's called, storage class memory is what they're branding it as. So like Kioxia XL Flash, Samsung ZNAND, but like fast NVMe is pretty close to the way there. Like I've seen some that are probably, I'd say they're about 80% of what an Optane is going to do.
Yeah.
And that's at your small block size, like your 4Ks
your 4K,
and stuff and
right.
your early stuff. Up at your 1 megs where you're trying to do like bigger loads in there, like I hate to say it, but everybody's talking about AI models and how fast can you load them.
Yeah.
But if you're doing big like sequential IOs, big reads, big writes like that, you're pretty close to the sequential throughput of Optane on a modern NVMe card.
Yeah. I had an interesting thought live on the show maybe about 2 or 3 months ago. I think I was talking with Tom Lawrence about we were talking about the NVIDIA and the $5 billion investment into Intel. We're talking about all these RAM storage or the RAM prices potentially going up and storage prices going up and things like that. And I said, man, Intel spun down Optane 2 years ago because Optane was kind of ahead of its time for what it was. It's a great technology. I think there's so much upside to it, but they didn't have the customers that they needed at the time, and it made sense to spin it down. They tried to sell it off. They tried to sell it off to so many different people, and no one bought it. And so Intel still owns Optane. They just don't produce it. With all of this going on right now, with production shifting over to HBM and NVMe over Fabric becoming a real player in the AI space to dramatically increase your available memory to GPUs, is NVIDIA sitting on a potential gold mine with a partnership with Intel to bring back Optane from the dead via NVMe over Fabric or memory interface or some hybrid in between and completely bypass the whole HBM/DDR5 requirement?
It's possible. I mean, it's one of those things where you go, hey, they've got their proprietary NVLink that they're running in like the terabit level speeds.
Right.
So could they just like make Optane was a joint venture with Micron.
Right.
But could they just make like some card where they say, hey, this is going to be like it's NVLink compatible, and it's just a crap ton of Optane.
Yeah, you just drop 4 terabytes into a PCI Express card or some crap. Right.
Yeah. NVDIMMs are usually NVDIMMs. I'm talking about battery-backed RAM in this case, Vince. Not like a PMM Optane device. I'm not talking about like the DC PMMs. I'm talking about actually like 16 to 32 gigabytes of DDR4 or DDR5 with a super cap in it and a bit of flash to back it up. Those guys are the ones that we stick in systems when we want to say like, hey, we want to measure in gigabytes per second of throughput at 4K.
Right.
Yeah.
And what's funny is that's always what Optane was great at, is those random seeks, which is what AI truly needs to function well. And so is NVIDIA sitting on a potential gold mine? Is that something that we might see spring up in the next 12 months? It's going to take some engineering time over the next, like, this isn't going to be something that they just go, oh yeah, we'll just crank out some more Optane DIMMs and we'll plug it into a Blackwell card. It's going to take like 12 months for them to figure out exactly how they want to interface it, whether it's PCI Express, NVLink, even InfiniBand, whatever the hell they want to do. But there's potential there that Optane may come back from the dead. I have no inside sources on that. This is pure speculation, but really fun speculation.
I would love it to come back. I mean, I'd even just love to get my hands on a few more of those, like 58 gig or 118 gig little the P1600X cards.
Yeah,
those are great cards. Those died too soon.
Yes, they did. Yeah. I still run a bunch of the 16 gig Optane M.2s just for appliance drives because
boot devices.
Exactly, as you said, they'll outlive the heat death of the universe because infinite write endurance on them.
Pretty much, and they're PLP safe inherently because of the design of 3D crosspoint NAND.
Yep.
So because they'd write straight to there, they don't get buffered. So that's fantastic. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm sure, like, I see people talking about how they use them. Some people say, hey, they use it for a boot pool. All my log devices are Optane. Optane was a absolutely fantastic log device, probably the best one you could get as a consumer. ZFS log device, again, it's a log device. It's not a cache. No matter how many times people say it, it's not a write cache.
Right.
You can cheat and make it act like one by cranking up the values of like the ZFS dirty data family.
Yeah.
Because by default, that's only 4 gigabytes topping out of the box on OpenZFS or on TrueNAS, unless you tune it up higher.
Yeah.
Now you can crank that up higher if you have the memory to hold your transaction group in there. So if you say, hey, I've got 128 gigs or 256, I think somebody posted in, I don't know who's got the most amount of RAM in their system. Sound off in the chat. But if you got 256 gigs of RAM in there, Jeff's turning around.
I win.
How much are you repping? Terabyte?
1.5 in DDR5 6400.
Okay, in a ZFS system.
No, not in the ZFS system.
Okay.
I've got 256 in my ZFS system right now.
Okay, so there you go. Yeah. So if you have 256 in there and you say, hey, I want to bump up my dirty data, you're going to increase it from 4 to 8 or even 16. And what that basically means is you're going to have up to 16 gigabytes of pending data that's going to get written. Now you're basically, the log device is holding like a CC copy of those writes is what's happening. So the writes are going into RAM. They're also being CC'd to your SSD. So Optane works really well for that. In normal operations, all that happens is the transactions are spat out from RAM to its final resting place on your VDEVs, and then you're just discarding those groups. You're discarding the data off the disk.
Yeah.
It is never read back from that log drive unless your system crashes and you have to replay from it.
Yep.
So all you need from that log drive is it's got to be big enough to hold that 4, 8, 16, however big you set it, buffer, and then, just do it very, very quickly. Put it in and then get rid of it. It's just got to return and say, hey, okay, I've got that data. It's safe. Sends it back up the chain. ZFS says, okay, great, it's good. That's it. And then it writes to there endlessly and then just tosses out. And so that's why if you look at the smart stats or anything on a log drive, it's going to be like, hey, terabytes, petabytes written, and your read's going to be like, 5 gigs.
Yeah.
I read 5 gigs from me once when my system crashed and I had to replay the log files.
Yeah. Yocto, I think, wins by default with 2 terabytes in his. Although I will say, I think I sold him half of that.
Yeah. Wow. That's impressive.
Yocto's our resident humble Homelab.
Homelab.
With simply 400 amp service and 5 racks in his garage.
Good Lord. I won't ask you to even justify that because having that is justification and stuff.
That's just
you don't
fun.
need to do anything else.
Yeah.
All right. Let's take a couple. We got a couple questions here popping up. We got Green Protagonist with $5 here. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Green.
He says, I have four 800 gig SATA SSDs for 4 VM game storage. He says, should I do one disk per? Should I do a RAID Z1 SMB volume or some kind of multi-virtual disk with dedupe? Now, Jeff, you had a great video about using, iSCSI ZVols with deduplication. In this case, I'm going to say, now, you're using Proxmox there, Green Protag.
Yes,
so
yes.
I'm going to buck the trend a little bit here and say you're going to use NFS v4. You're going to use your QCOWs, and you are actually going to copy those, which is going to let you use block cloning, which is in TrueNAS. So that's like dedupe light. You're not going to pay the memory overhead of deduplication because you're basically going to just copy the underlying QCal file from system 1 or your gold system, make a system 0 and copy it to systems 1, 2, 3, 4. You basically you'll have zero overhead for that because it'll be like a snapshot. All of your systems will be able to have exclusive access to the disks back and forth for their reads, their writes, their little updates, and you're only going to be writing whatever little deltas happen in config files, updates, caching. When you get a big update that comes in, hey, you update your gold image system 0, you get a big patch that comes in for a game, and then recopy out those underlying drives. So you have, if I saw you mention earlier, you're stuck on Windows for it because you're using the P4s. I feel your sympathy. That's where I'm at.
Right.
So I have a C drive in these machines, and I have an S drive for Steam. So when I need to do my updates, I update all of my S drive on the main machine, and then I just shut down the other two, copy over those 2 disk files, overwriting them in place, which zeroes out any deltas that happened. The new patches are applied. I fire up the 2 VMs, and we're off to the running again. It's great.
That's pretty great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably the way that I would do it is I would probably run all 4 drives in something like a RAID Z. You get a little bit of redundancy.
Oh yeah.
And I like enabling, again, if we're aiming for like a little bit simpler but a little bit more overhead, I like the idea of running those in a RAID Z with dedupe enabled, because yes, every drive is going to have to, or every VM is going to have to download its updates, install the Steam games, etc. like that, but you're only going to incur the writes from one of those because the data already exists on the drive. When the systems are simply running, though, you get the benefit of read speed of 3 drives. And so it's going to dramatically speed up whatever operations versus just pushing one SATA SSD through, which you're capped at 550. So
yeah, I forgot to mention that. Yeah, absolutely put them in a RAID Z because the worst thing to happen would be that, one of them dies and, hey, this VM's down and you got to figure out if you can move it to another or something. Put them in a RAID Z.
Yep.
Yeah, Z1's fine.
Yep, that's what I would do.
Yeah. We got a question here from Brian Vaz. You want to read that one there?
Sure. Brian, thank you very much for the $10. Much appreciated. Even if it's Canadian, we still accept that here. Although I'm going to have to pay a tariff on that, I think. Western Digital announced they're relaunching dual actuator drives today. Any chance to add support for DA SAS or SATA drives? We talked about this right before we went live. We were talking about dual actuator systems.
We were actually talking about that. We said, hey, WD launched their dual actuator drives. And I'm not surprised by that because they are, if you look at libzbc for zone block control, they actually own that GitHub repo. So I'm not surprised they finally put some, dual actuator out there into the wild because they're saying, hey, we want to be able to do this like weird stuff with the writes back and forth. So it's kind of like adding support. The challenge with them, so the dual actuator SAS drives for Seagate, and I'm right now working under the assumption that WD is going to do the same, is they work by basically having 2 LUNs on a single SAS port. Now, SAS, of course, has 2 paths, but in the TrueNAS enterprise world, we use those to hook to 2 separate controllers, as in active standby kind of world. They're used internally in these dual actuator drives because they're basically using it to link from one port to another internally in the drive, so it only supports a single external SAS port. So for us, from an enterprise perspective, it's like, well, those drives aren't any good to us. Except in like a single head unit like our R series. The SATA drives, they're a little more complicated. And if WD does their if WD does their SAS drives like the Seagate does their SATA, which is just an LBA split right at the 50% mark, where they say all the LBAs below here are on actuator 1, all the LBAs above it are on actuator 2. We could theoretically do that. The challenge is going to come in with making sure we have the uniqueness. We need to build something in there so that in the middleware, you're properly being guided to not have, you know, two parts of the same pool on the same actuator, because you might have two actuators, you have one spindle still. So that one drive dies, all of a sudden you've lost the equivalent of 2 disks. And so if you make a RAID Z1, we want to make sure you don't accidentally give yourself a deadly failure domain with one drive. There's also looking at the oddities of the firmware, like the Seagate ones, for example. There are certain SCSI commands that, when issued to one unit, will cross the LU boundaries. Write cache, flush cache is one of them, which is a performance impact. You might have a little bit slower performance than you expect, but you can manage with that. The other one that crosses boundaries is like SCSI format unit command. So you think you're formatting one pool, you accidentally nuked part of your other one. You accidentally
nuked 2 drives instead of 1, right?
Oops. Yeah. That's a big mistake, and that ends up with your data going in the forever box, and we don't want that.
DA drives probably belong a little bit better in a Ceph environment, not necessarily ZFS. I'm going to be a little bit bold and state that. Simply because of the standard recommendations for like your VDEV size and things like that. If you build a Z2, and let's say you have an absolute failure of a drive controller on one of those disks, took out 2 of your disks, that's all of your redundancy. Ceph is a little bit more resilient in that regard, where it's a little bit more spread out. With ZFS, if you lose those 2 drives, you're down to nothing at that point.
You're hanging in the wind there.
Exactly. And so while you could probably use this, and while I'm sure you guys are going to implement something for DA drives that makes as much sense as you can possibly make of it, it feels like playing with fire to me, if I'm being honest.
Juggling chainsaws again.
Yes, but
yes, but you can do it. But and I see people commenting that people are using Wendell scripts for the SATA-based dual actuator. It's there, and it's one of those, like, yes, it works, but we can't formally support you on that. It's kind of one of those things where if you're good enough to be doing a script to hand partition your dual actuator SATA drives, I mean, hey, you're probably awesome enough that you can do that, and we expect you to be able to understand there might be some consequences to that,
right?
In terms of the TrueNAS firmware is probably going to get a little bit confused.
Yep.
We got a couple of them sneaking in here. We got a couple more highlighted ones.
Cosworth sends over $5. Thank you very much, Cosworth. Yocto's secondhand gear is what Techno Tim uses on videos. I'm slowly transitioning my storage from Synology SHR2 with cache to ZFS on Unraid.
Hey, awesome to hear. We do not drive lock our, we don't firmware lock our drives, by the way.
Right.
Whether they're NVMe, SATA, SAS, we don't do that. That's not what we do. Jason Coyle sends in the donation of the beast here. Thank you very much for that. It says, when is Spice going to die and be replaced by VNC? VNC, I believe, it's actually the default now in ours. You can re-enable Spice in 2510, but VNC is the default. There's a number of open source free VNC clients. Man, it just works a hell of a lot better than Spice. But if you really want it, you can have it back. You can set it up. You can create a Spice virtual display driver and have that work. A couple of them sneaking.
It is the default on 25 now. I know Proxmox is still on Spice. I wish they would be fully on board. But at the same time, the nice thing about Spice is it's web native, and if I double click on a VM, it just opens the window and everything mostly works. And so it has pros and cons. So
a couple more sneaking in there. Somebody says, when is ZFS rewrite coming to TrueNAS scale? It's there in 25.10. It is a undocumented sort of command line one. You can ZFS rewrite, What we don't have support for is the ZFS rewrite with physical birth time. So that is the -P. That's going to come in TrueNAS 26. Yeah. DOH Chang says, is there true write caching coming for TrueNAS/ZFS, or do I need to make an SSD array? That is an upstream question for ZFS about having an actual write cache in the way and being able to have stuff land on an SSD. That is a very interesting question, and I will leave it at that. So it's a good one.
My phone has received like 4 spam calls in a row.
They're persistent.
They are persistent, yes.
They're persistent.
I keep looking down and going, why is my phone ringing again? No, that's a different number, same area code.
So since I know my kid's asleep and he won't be able to hear me, I'm planning on getting my youngest his first cell phone, which of course will have all kinds of parental controls on it.
Yep.
But, I got it. I signed up. I got it reserved to a number, signed up for his plan. 4 hours until the first spam call hit that number.
Yep.
Never been used by anybody. They're just robo-dialing all the way down them.
Exactly.
Just like,
yep.
Well, welcome to being online. It's like putting a VM online with no firewall. You're gonna get people knocking.
Yep, exactly. We were doing something with my daughter's account this last week, and my wife wasn't talking to my daughter at the time or anything like that. She was trying to activate some service that we were trying to add to her or something like that. And she goes, hey, so you should have gotten a verification code. Did you get that text? She goes, oh, I got a text, but it wasn't anything I asked for, so I just closed it and I went, good girl. Excellent.
Right answer.
Yes.
Right answer.
So she goes, yeah,
I wasn't expecting this.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting this. It said, hey, here's your activation code. She did. I didn't ask for that. And she swiped and I went, yes.
Yep. Right answer. You raised her well. Good job.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, boy.
Vince sends over $20. Thank you so much. Ep.419, you're late on this one. What is this going at the 90-minute mark? I appreciate it though. Ep.419, page expired. Data nuked due to firmware being awesome.
It's not a bug. It's an exciting new and undocumented
It's ringing
feature.
again. Anyone want to go? Yeah. That's number 5 now.
Oh,
Good
man.
Lord.
Non-stop with this.
Yep.
Oh, wow. What else? We had a couple other topics we wanted to dig into, just about like more myth busting. We're getting back to that.
Yeah.
We talked about 1 gig per terabyte. What's one of the other ones everybody's always rhyming off, right? 1 gig per terabyte. How about 5 gigs per terabyte? What's that one for? What does everybody always say that one's for? It's for dedupe, right?
Yep.
Dedupe. Now that one has a kernel of truth to it.
Yes.
5 gigabytes per terabyte is assigned if you're using dedupe and all of your data is at a 64K average record size. So your usual, like, Office documents kind of files stuffed in there.
Yep.
And that works when you're doing 64K average record size. The problem comes when people flip on dedupe onto stuff like iSCSI zvols, which works, it works okay right up until it doesn't, because you went from a 64K record to a 16K record, which is 1/4 the size. You have 4 times as many records. You have 4 times the RAM footprint.
Yeah.
You need 20 gigs per terabyte before you start overspilling your dedupe tables out of memory. Now, can you back that up now with special VDEVs to say, hey, I want to put my dedupe tables on SSDs? Well, you can do it now. But back before those existed, if you exhausted your RAM and you were using dedupe, you typically had a very bad situation going on. You would get that warning when you started to walk to the edge of it where you went, hey, if I deleted, my system's real slow.
Yeah.
Oh, and it came back after 30 seconds. I guess it's okay. It didn't happen. That was your warning. And if you didn't pay attention to that and you kept on going and loading more and more data, eventually you hit a spot where, you needed 20 gigs and you had 16. That remaining 4 gigs of your dedupe table is on spinning disks.
Mm-hmm.
Dedupe entries are sub 4K.
Yeah.
And are basically going to be randomly dispersed across your pool.
There's a bit here.
Now,
there's a bit here. There's a bit here.
There's a bit here. Boy, disks absolutely, spinning disks love random small accesses, don't they, Jeff? It's their favorite thing to do. They love it so much, it is what they will spend all of their time doing.
If you have a sub 4K record, you can easily access that at the blistering speed of about 1 megabyte per second.
Mm-hmm. and you have 4 gigs of dedupe table waiting on your disk. So you'd better hope you get a hit in those first 16. Because if you don't, and it has to start walking your on-disk tables, you are in for some pain.
Yes, because if you're doing the math properly, that's 4 gigs of on table with 1 megabyte of sub 4K speed. You're looking at 4,096 seconds to access your table.
You're going to be waiting a while.
Yes.
And that's going to happen for every transaction group that comes in,
Yep.
which by default close off after 5 seconds. So for every 5 seconds of writes, you're waiting 4,096 potentially.
Yep.
That doesn't scale well.
No. And that's for one user for one file.
Yeah. And considering the default deadman timer in ZFS is, I believe, 120 seconds, where it says, hey, your transaction group failed to complete.
Yeah.
If it doesn't complete in time, we're going to kernel panic you.
Yep.
Because you're leaving your data hanging in the breeze, and we figure your system is broken or hung.
Yep. Yeah. This is a request that hasn't been fulfilled yet. We're now just going to ignore it. And,
this is why a lot of times when you said dedupe on especially the old FreeNAS forums, people had that sort of, we'll say, visceral reaction to you advocating for dedupe.
Yeah.
It was one of those things. Again, it's juggling chainsaws. You need to know that you can do it. You need to know that you're using the right workload for it. And I mean, your video there where you're advocating for it in the Steam libraries, you're pretty clear about, hey, there's risks to this.
Yeah.
You need to make sure you're doing it right.
Yep.
And, you know, especially in the case where if you're doing dedupe for VMs, you can, you know, burn down your guest VMs as well and say, hey, I'm going to reclone those.
Yep.
And, you know, you kind of reset that table. That works great.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of really good uses for dedupe. There's a lot of use cases where you don't need dedupe. Like I advocated for in that video, like if you're doing a Steam library where you've got 6 people who are accessing the same, you know, set of drives, and they're all going to be downloading a similar game, there's no reason you can't enable dedupe because they're probably not going to be accessing the same data at the same time. And updates happen pretty regularly. So if one client updates, they're all going to see that same update within a couple of days of each other. They're going to write that data. It's going to kind of equal out. Your performance should stay pretty good, even with minimal memory usage. If you have an environment like an office environment, like I used to manage environments that were, you know, 3,000 to 5,000 users pretty easily. They would send email attachments with a PDF in them, like a 20 megabyte PDF file that everyone would just drag to their desktop or their downloads folder or wherever it went. And all of a sudden
or they just send to everyone at.
Right. And so all of a sudden we had 5,000 copies of a 20 megabyte PDF taking up space. We enabled dedupe on a lot of home folders, but we did it with a massive amount of memory to avoid issues like that. And what's great about that is you're paying a little bit extra in memory, back when memory was cheap, and you're not sacrificing 20 megabytes a shot for every user who downloads that file. Because that adds up really quick as well, let me tell you.
Yeah.
If you're in an environment where everyone is using mixed file types, no one's really accessing the same data, they're not accessing the same files, dedupe doesn't make sense at all. And you're just asking for that performance hit. You really have to leverage what your environment actually is and how your users are actually utilizing it to know if it makes sense for you.
I was going to say, I think my chat stalled for a while, so I refreshed here, and I'm just seeing a bunch of other questions here.
Let's see. We got a Jason for $5. Answer on air for $10 regarding my spam call. I was thinking about doing that, at least listening for a couple of seconds and then hitting speaker if it's something fun. So if they call back, I'll probably pick up. Jay, $5. Thank you so much. His name is Jeff. In this house, we practice skepticism of social engineering computing.
The best way to hack a system is to hack the person using it. Absolutely. Social engineering.
The one constant is hacking has always been social engineering and always will be.
Attack network layer 8, folks. It's the most vulnerable.
Yep.
American Cosworth, another $5. Thank you very much. He says, I got a phishing call saying they were from the government agency I happened to work for. It was amazing fun how much I messed with them. That is fantastic. I love that idea.
I got a call from a dude one time who was really, really slick sounding. Like, it was a real person, but doing a scam call. It wasn't a robocall or, this is Apple, we're, verifying your $1,700 purchase of a MacBook Pro. It wasn't one of those. It was like a real person. I don't remember what they were asking for, but it was some sign up for this, timeshare, BS, whatever. And at the time, I happened to be working for a state agency. So they called, and I'm talking to him for a minute, and I said, okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and ask you to put me on the do not call list. So he goes, okay, well, if you don't want to take advantage. I said, well, the proper thing is to add me to the list and confirm you've added me to the list and then hang up. And he goes, oh, well, that's fine. And I said, so have you added me to the list? And he goes, no, I'm not going to do that. And I said, okay, cool. If you call again, my lawyers will be the ones who answer the phone then. And he goes, oh, you have legal counsel on retention for spam calls? And I said, no, but I happen to work in the Attorney General's office here for the state of Oregon. Hey, Tim, what are you doing? Immediately hung up.
That is an excellent way to do that.
You got about 5 minutes free? I got someone you really need to talk to right now.
Yeah. Oh, man. And to think, I would just mess with them and, say that, I run Linux or, the air duct cleaning ones. Be like, no, I have geese. You can't clean my ducts. I have geese. I would just mess with them that way. All right, we got a great one here from Jack Sparrow donating $20 to the stream. Thank you very much, Jack Sparrow.
Thank you.
This is a question for Chris. Can TrueNAS Scales hope to see a network mode option in the app deployment dialog with a container other app option for reasons? Now, we're talking about tunneling everything through something like a hypothetical WireGuard or a VPN, and you want to be able to point there because the Linux ISO you want isn't available in your particular country. Hey, I get that. It happens.
There's about 38 states where Linux ISOs aren't available right now. I totally understand.
Exactly. So we are working on, expanding the network connectivity. The challenges with that is, especially when you're making apps dependent on other apps, and then we have to create things like a startup order. Mm-hmm. It's not something we had initially envisioned needing to design for people doing this nesting doll of apps. We had somebody who said, I run my PF Sense VM on TrueNAS, and TrueNAS itself is gatewayed through that VM. So they got themselves into this Ouroboros of the middleware wouldn't fully start the apps because it couldn't find the network,
right? Because
it was dependent on a VM.
Wendell's most cursed of routers.
Exactly. This was like a cursed network setup. It's something we're certainly going to look into, is expanding all of the different network connectivity options. Mm-hmm. Doing something like this with a WireGuard or a OpenVPN or anything like that, where you say, hey, I want to make sure that all my apps are separately tunneled out because I need them to go different here. Then that's probably a case where we'll look into this. This is one of the things where I can take it back to our engineering team and say, hey, there's a lot of people who want to do this, apps inside apps tunneling in there. Vince giving me flack about jails with VNets. Hey, we got LXC containers. You can do that all you want there too. You want to do LXCs, you want to do VMs. This is specifically people want that Docker app stuff in there.
Yeah.
And so that requires a little bit more plumbing if you want that point and click just works kind of stuff. But yeah, that's one of those things. I'm absolutely going to take this back to the engineering team and say, let's look at this, because it was something that got brought up to Chris and I in our previous podcast. It's getting brought up here. There's clearly an appetite for it. So let's go for this.
I just have to call out the fact that Jack Sparrow is asking for specific startup for network mode applications.
I wonder why. I wonder why the greatest pirate in the history wants to know about network configuration.
But you have heard of him. Jack, one video that might be interesting for you is actually one I published just a couple of weeks ago on a VPN gateway. And that is a server-agnostic service that I like to run. It runs in a VM, but it runs an OpenVPN gateway with routing and firewall rules through IP tables in an Ubuntu VM that you can connect to a commercial VPN like a Nord or a Surfshark or whatever else. And it has a built-in kill switch. So all you have to do is point your network traffic from whatever client device you want at this particular VM, and that VM becomes your gateway device to the internet. If your commercial VPN is not connected, it denies all traffic by default. And so if you don't want things to access the internet, you don't want a personal history, you don't want any trackable data going through that, that is a fantastic way to go.
Cool. Got another one from American Cosworth. He says, what I need is TrueNAS to be able to easily add disks one at a time. Not for me, but for my family and friends who look at me strange when I say Linux. Well, good news is that you can actually add disk at a time into RAID Z1, RAID Z2 now. You can do that. Now, it is truly one at a time. You can't add two at a time and expand to both of them. You have to expand one, let it, resilver it in, and then expand by the second one, let it resilver it in. It is truly disk at a time, sequential expansion. So we can, in fact, do that. 2410, we added that one?
Yeah, that was an addition when OpenZFS themselves started supporting that. Yeah. And I haven't tried it yet, but I actually have a VDEV that I need to do that because my original VDEV was 7 drives wide, and I have an 8th drive that I would like to add to it. And so that's probably a video that I'm going to end up making here in the next month or so.
Yeah. It is going to mess a little bit with your reported available space until you actually start using it. ZFS rewrite can help some of that, but again, the challenge with ZFS rewrite is that it is going to basically inflate your space if you're using snapshots.
Yeah.
So that's the challenge.
All that data has to go somewhere.
Yeah, it's got to go somewhere. Digging and poking around here. We say Josh Haas here. He says TrueNAS as a VM still a good idea. And people are saying, hey, let's...
This is another great myth.
You got to do it.
Yeah.
You can't virtualize TrueNAS or you can virtualize TrueNAS. This is a great one to bust. So, and people are calling it out in the chat, which I appreciate, doing it right. Use hardware pass-through of your HBA.
Yes.
So, pass that through there because what you really don't want is to obfuscate any access to the disks.
Yep.
Hardware pass-through using IOMMU. Take your storage controller, whether it's your LSI HBA, your SATA card, your onboard SATA ports, if you're using an NVMe drive for boot, give that entire device to the VM and let it have exclusive access.
Yep.
So the bonus to this, if you are running Proxmox specifically, here is your challenge. That Proxmox speaks ZFS as well.
Yes.
And people say, oh, I pass raw disks. I don't want to isolate my HBA. I want to pass raw disks. The problem with that is that you can get into a scenario where both Proxmox and TrueNAS, with no awareness of each other, can simultaneously mount your pool.
Yep.
That results in bad stuff. Yep. You basically get 32 transactions to figure out that this happened. And if you don't figure it out inside there, your pool is toast because you have overwritten your Uber blocks.
Yep.
You're dead.
Yep.
There is something that I wrote this, and it's a resource on our forums. If you go to the forums.truenas.com and look up the Proxmox and multi-host variable, you can set a variable on your pool called multi-host. And despite the name of it, turning multi-host on does not enable multi-host. What it enables is a check for it. So it will basically say, hey, if this flag is set, you need to do aggressive checking at import time to make sure this pool is not in use by another system.
Yep.
So turn on multi-host. If you are doing this, if there is no way for you to do hardware pass-through in Proxmox, if you are insistent on passing individual disks, turn on multi-host.
Yep.
It might mean you're going to take 30 to 60 seconds longer to boot that VM, but what it's not going to do is put you in a scenario where you can double mount your pool.
Yep.
I would rather spend 30 seconds longer when I update, twice, 3 times a year or whatever, than I would go and, crap, all my data's gone.
Right. I did a tutorial on disk pass-through a number of years ago. And at the time, that flag wasn't available. And I don't think I mentioned that you could accidentally mount or import the ZFS pool because Proxmox has been ZFS aware for a very long time. And so I didn't really cover that very well. I said... TrueNAS needs bare access to a disk. It needs raw drive controller level access to a disk in order to make everything work properly. And so there's two ways you can do that. You can pass through an HBA. Here's your IOMMU, drop your PCI card in there. Here's your HBA, done, we're good to go. If you can't do that, you can pass through individual disks and then have the TrueNAS VM mount them individually as individual disks and then add them to a ZFS pool. That also works. But once you create a ZFS volume, that volume is now importable in Proxmox. And if you accidentally go to disks or ZFS tab in Proxmox and then you click, oh yeah, there's a ZFS pool, let's add that in. Toast.
Bang.
How quickly does 32 transactions happen on a ZFS pool, by the way?
As slow as possible, 160 seconds.
Yeah.
If you don't write anything to trigger it otherwise, 5-second default timer, 32 transactions, 160 seconds.
Exactly.
Just under 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And at that point, suddenly you get, oops, we experienced corruption. Your pool is unavailable.
Yeah.
And we can't mount it.
Yeah. Yeah, if you accidentally mount that pool, it's not even a menu option thing. You have 160 seconds to run to the back of your server and rip a power cord out.
Pretty much.
That's your only option at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. Or kill the VM.
Yeah.
But then at that point, Proxmox got it mounted, and who knows what it's done to it. You pretty much, you got to pull the power plug, which is amusing because I actually saved somebody's pool who, now, I'm not going to name them. I'm going to protect the guilty here.
Customer
they
X.
Were using,
yeah, sure.
they were using Claude to code some scripts for cleaning up certain things on their TrueNAS pool. So all you AI haters, go ahead and sound off in the chat for this one, saying he deserved it. And this script was great for saying it was going to clean up all of these like Postgres DBs and stuff that weren't being used by his apps.
Yeah.
The challenge was this script was expecting a variable to be set for the path to his directories for the Postgres before it issued the wonderful command to, of course, remove that language, remove the French language pack, right? rm-fr. That variable was not populated on his system when he ran it. So he effectively ran rm rf from the root of his drive. He got about 3 screen scrolls into it before he panicked and pulled the plug.
Yeah.
And came to the forums to say, please help. What have I done?
Yeah.
And I said, well, you are pretty far along the FA curve. We're going to hopefully prevent you from climbing up the FO axis.
Right. Well, the FO is a downhill slide.
Yeah. Well, it's the more you F around, the more you find out. And with ZFS, this is an exponential curve.
Yes.
This is not linear.
Yeah.
You can F around quite a bit before you find out. It will protect you from a lot. What we and everybody's having.
But once you cross that summit, there's one way to go.
Bye-bye. Yeah. So what we actually did was I said, take out your boot drive. You're going to install a new copy and you're not going to import your pool. We actually manually wound him back. I had him dump the labels from his disk and say, which of these timestamps is before you hit the enter key on that ill-fated command? He found a timestamp. I said, we're now going to import your pool, read-only at first, at this timestamp. And this is basically, you have that ability with ZFS.
Yep.
You can walk those 32 Uber blocks back, and those are all valid entry points for your pool.
Yep.
We walked him back to before he ran that command and had to pull the power plug. And I said, mount it read-only. Go look in here. Check your data sets. Are they there? Oh, good. They're present. Okay. Now you're going to run this command. And you are going to sit there while your system chews on that for several hours. He did that. He rebooted one more time. All of his data was back because it had not successfully flushed it out of the history yet.
Yeah.
That was probably one of the best recoveries I'd ever done.
Yeah.
Because it was like you just basically RF to your root.
Yeah.
But you still have your data.
Yeah.
That's a testament to, even without, but you better believe he set up snapshots that same day after he got his data back.
Yeah.
That was a good one. So we got a couple here, a couple donations from the PC Archive. We got two $5 donations. Greatly appreciate it. He says, listening orc, I'm a huge ZFS nerd. My main server is a Minis Forum MSA2 with an external HBA, and his backup TrueNAS is his first PC case from 1998. Is it nice and beige? I don't know if you can see it in the frame here. There was a little Dell. I think it's just out of frame, unfortunately. I have a P3 933 that is sitting behind me there.
One of my coworkers has that exact system. I have worked on that so many. Is that a Rambus system?
It is not.
Oh,
you got Rambus.
You got the DDR
SDR.
or SDR.
It is SDR. It is SDR. It has a whole 128 megabytes of RAM in it. So
he had a P3 933 that was a Rambus system.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought they only came as in the P4 era was when RD RAM showed around.
Nope.
Yeah. Well, we are happy to keep you company on your night shift here at the PC Archive. Cheers for that. Even though you can't join us in the drinking, hopefully.
Depends on where you work, I guess.
Yeah, that's very possible. We got another $10 from YouTube Sucks So Bad. Hopefully they don't demonetize your stream for this, Jeff, with us saying that. To be clear, reviewer, that is the gentleman's username. We are not implying that you're bad. We do, in fact, enjoy this. He says, I could just ask TrueNAS support. Well, you kind of are in a case. I figured it'd be good for viewers to know. Besides virtualization and containers, what are some differences between TrueNAS Core/Enterprise and TrueNAS Scale? So, little nomenclature thing here. Enterprise is the umbrella term that encompasses both TrueNAS Core and Scale when you put it on our hardware.
Right.
So if you're saying
on IX
TrueNAS,
Systems hardware. Yeah.
On IX Systems official hardware, on TrueNAS hardware, because we officially do business as the TrueNAS brand name now.
Yes.
We don't even call ourselves IX Systems.
Okay. Good to know.
But if we say, if you're running TrueNAS Enterprise 13, that is the shared code base with Core. So you're running the FreeBSD version.
Yeah.
If you're running TrueNAS Enterprise 24.10, you are running the TrueNAS Scale code base. The difference is, well, obviously, Core is BSD based, Scale is Linux based. That's the main piece behind it. Mm-hmm. And with that comes all the other services and the middleware pieces that need to show up in there. So instead of the CTL driver for iSCSI on BSD has been replaced by SCST on the Linux side. Mm-hmm. We've got the different kernel mode SMB drivers on one and the other. Functionality differences. I mean, you've got the NVMe target driver on the Scale side, and you've got the absolutely nothing on the BSD side in comparison. So yeah, it is. TrueNAS Community and TrueNAS Enterprise is now how we divide the two, and it's all Linux based now. We are not continuing to issue new FreeBSD based versions of TrueNAS.
Right. Speaking of BSD, though, Vince chimes in with another $5. Thank you very much. Hey, Chris, want to have a long discussion about all the oddities I found lately with ZFS labels while building a custom OS image builder from scratch. You guys had quite the conversation over the last week.
We did, and now I'm trying to recall the exact nuances of this one.
Yeah.
That one, it had to do with when you were... So what I understand you're doing, Vince, this has to do with your, Raspberry Pi-based time server that you were building. Go ahead and stop me if I'm sharing too much here. But basically, you're using a ZFS-based boot volume on that, and you were basically saying it's kind of like it's a pre-baked build pool or a boot pool with a set GUID on there, and the way you are reformatting this is basically you're DDing that image to an SD card, which it would then have to sort of expand in place to do that. The problem is when you put it on there, you started with your small image of whether it's 4 gigs, 8 gigs, however your boot image is, and then you expanded it to grow. The way ZFS works, for those who don't know, is it actually stores 4 copies of your disk label. There's 2 at the front, there's 2 at the end. So what was happening here was you have 2 at the front and 2 at the end of the 4 gig partition. You then expanded it all the way, and you would want to put them down here. But what happens is, if you've already used this if you used this SD card before, you got 2 here, you got 2 here from your old version, so you got 4 here. You now have 6 labels. they all have the same pool ID on them.
Yeah.
So when ZFS sees that live, it sees 4 labels that are from a timestamp probably in the past, 2 labels that are newer at the end because this was a previously used card and you re-imaged from a release that was a month ago. So all of a sudden you've got 6 labels, and they don't agree. The one thing ZFS hates more than anything is ambiguity. It is an atomic file system. It likes true and false, ones and zeros, yeses and nos. There is no in between. There is no maybe.
Yeah.
When ZFS sees a maybe, it panics.
Yeah.
Like literally, it will go, I am not touching this pool.
Yep.
IO error, pool suspended. You have an ambiguous configuration. So what we ended up having to do, like, how did
Which
you end
is
up solving that, Ben?
great from a data
Which is
preservation
fantastic
standpoint.
For data, from
Exactly.
data integrity, exactly what you want.
Yeah.
But you end up with these really weird edge cases where you're trying to expand it. And the key is if it was different pool IDs every time, wouldn't be an issue.
Yeah.
But it's the same pool idea. So all of a sudden you've got 4 here and 2 here, and ZFS gets confused. Like the way you can do that is say you go all the way to the end and you nuke the end of the disk. Yeah, you left a hole at the end of the disk.
Yeah.
That's how you solve it. And that's how we solve it in our middleware as well. We will say, hey, if we see ZFS labels on a disk and we're importing it and making it part of a pool, we're gonna swat those out first before we bring it in, just so we don't have weird things like that happening.
Yeah. We're gonna take the entire table of contents and we're going to assume 0.
Yeah,
just in case. Right, exactly.
And we put up lots of warning flags and red dialogues to say, hey, you're adding this into your pool. We're gonna erase everything on that. Are you sure?
Yes.
And you got to check that confirm dialog box.
Yep. And when importing new disks, because I reuse disks all the time here for, it is a home lab essentially. And so, obviously I'm reusing hardware all the time for different projects. And sometimes I don't erase my disks. And I've got 2 disks or 3 disks from 2 different ZFS pools that I'm trying to throw into something. And it'll go, hey, this is an existing ZFS drive. I'm not going to touch it. Because we don't know what you're doing. And I'm like, no, I just want to make a new RAID Z. And it's like, nope, I don't care. It has ZFS data. I'm not touching it. And so a lot of times to create a new ZFS pool, if I'm doing like multi drives from multiple different pools, you will have to go in an fdisk and clear all partitions. And I will go in, I'll boot into Windows installer, and I will load up disk utility, and I will just format it with NTFS just to make sure all the flags are gone. Because I have used fdisk before, but the table of contents is still present, which means it still has those first 2 flags.
Yeah,
I've had that happen before.
There was actually something in the libblock ID that had to do with finding spurious NTFS labels that was causing issues previously with ZFS. I'll have to dig that one up. Yeah. But and it was actually, you had to go in there and poke out the NTFS because Linux was trying to understand it.
Yeah.
We no longer have an NTFS driver in TrueNAS, so it doesn't affect us. But back when we did, it was like, hey, it was one of those weird things where we're like, we're not seeing this, but our community is. So what's going on?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's how it happens. They took their old Windows gaming system, they put TrueNAS on it. Their Windows gaming system was running NTFS before.
Right. Yep. No, those 2 file systems don't like each other at all. There's flags set in various locations on drives that if they're detected, they just go, no, I'm out. And so my usual modus operandi will be, if I'm taking a drive that used to be a ZFS, I will fdisk it and delete all partitions, and then I will disk utility it and just format it with one clean partition NTFS, and then any of them will be able to wipe it and import. That's what I've found is the thing that works for me.
Yeah, Michael Sutherland's got it right there. Disk part clean. That's the one.
Yes.
Select disk, whatever, disk part clean.
Yep.
Boom.
I've had clean still not clear ZFS flags from it before. I have
it's a Windows one. It doesn't care about ZFS.
Right, it doesn't care about
gibberish
ZFS.
to it.
Right, Windows doesn't care about ZFS. But if I just take a ZFS disk and I disk part clean it, the ZFS, the first two flags are not cleared off that. And if ZFS sees those first two flags,
yeah, it's going to have a little moment there.
Yeah, it'll have a little moment. And I've had issues where it goes, no, I'm not going to touch this disk. There's still ZFS flags. I'm like, I've wiped it 4 times. What are you talking about? But then if you create a new NTFS format, it'll go, okay, this is obviously an NTFS disk. I'm okay now.
Pave over it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. A couple more good questions here. So PC Archive, again, another $5. Thank you very much for that. He says, my first PC is a beige compact, and it had a 12 gig Quantum Bigfoot 5 1/4. The chonker, the big guy. He says he backed up the original image of Windows 98 First Edition.
Nice.
Back when we were all tolerating Windows a little bit better than we do now.
Yeah. I've only ever owned one 5 1/4 drive, and it was also with a compact about that same era. It would have been a Pentium 2, like a 475-ish, 400, 500-ish megahertz. Yeah, it was a Quantum Bigfoot. I think mine was an 8 gig. It wasn't the 12.
No, I'm showing my age here, but my 5 1/4 drive was an MFM RLL on an IBM PC XT.
Okay, yeah, I can go XT hardware on you as well. You're not that much older than me.
Get off my lawn.
Yeah. My 5 1/4 drive, I was already actively working on computers, and my neighbor had an old Pentium 2 system, and he goes, "Oh, this thing's a piece of junk and it doesn't work." And there was some really simple fix with it. And I remember, like, he goes, "Do you want this thing? Like, you're smart with computers." And I went, "Yeah, sure." And I took it home, and it took me like 20 minutes to fix it and get Windows installed. And I was like, "Oh, it was just this thing." And my dad pulled me aside, and he goes, "Don't ever tell people that. If they give you something for free, don't tell them you fixed it. Just use it." And I went, "Yeah."
Well, it was so hard to fix. I put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into it, but I got it kind of working.
Yeah, I told him, 5 minutes, I figured out what the problem was, and now I have a new Pentium 2 machine. Thank you so much. And he goes, "That's really rude." And I went, "Okay."
Oops. Lessons learned, right?
Yeah, exactly. I still remember that, so thank you, Dad. Yeah. Michael sends over $10. Thank you very much, Michael. No question, just throwing $7 in for a great episode. That's $10, though. Although he took the 30% from YouTube.
There you go.
Cheers, my friend. Thank you so much. Someone's been paying attention to the rants that I have about YouTube sometimes.
I am running on empty, unfortunately.
You are. I never announced my second beer, which has been treating me nicely. This is from Brewery Omgang, which is a very interesting name. OMMEGANG. This is part of their Gnome Gang series. This is a Belgian-style blonde ale, clocking in at 9.5%. And it is fantastic.
Oh boy.
Those for any fans of Belgian beers in here, those banana esters are doing some overtime here.
Excellent.
They're fantastic. I am loving this thing.
Okay.
Jay sends over another $5. Thank you again, good sir. Any exploration of official alternative parallel file systems to support scale-out use since Gluster EOL'd? Asking for an HPC director who is also me.
Exploration. We'll say there is exploration happening. Anything further to that, I cannot commit. We are always exploring. We were very disappointed that Gluster went away.
Yeah.
But we are definitely exploring things. I can't commit to anything further than that because obviously stuff that we do always has to pass our own tests, and our engineers are extremely picky about what they want to let in.
Good.
Yeah. Sneaking in another one here real quick. 89T Supra, great car generation, by the way. The Mark III was, underloved. Everybody loved the Mark IV because they saw it Fast and Furious.
Right.
Mark III, fantastic car.
Mark III is still great. Yeah.
Lovely car. He asks, will you ever officially support the legacy NVIDIA drivers, or are we needing to buy a new GPU? I have a P4, hey, P4 cryo, P4 gang showing up, used for image, but after upgrading to 2510, it is dead. So what happened here is this is NVIDIA's decision to use the open kernel module driver and cut off support for everything that lacks the GPU system processor. So everything older than the Turing, the GTX 16 generation series GPUs. We had to make a tough decision at TrueNAS to say we can only really ship one K-mod with it. We can either ship an open or a closed. And being open core, open source, we got to ship the open one. It's at the core of what we do. And then also, they then went and required the open one for Blackwell. So the 50 series. It was like, well, that's the way the wind is blowing, unfortunately. But
do you support Kepler through Volta and not support 5000, or do you support latest, greatest, highest generation and cut everything sub 16? That's what it worked out. I mean, we cut off the true legacy, so the Kepler stuff that was cut off a while ago, and that's actually incompatible with the kernel. But I actually dropped a link in chat there. I'm running under my T3 podcast one. I dropped a chat or a URL in chat there. Somebody has actually recompiled it with the closed driver. Send one more message, because I have all URLs blocked by default, so I need to add you to an approved sender so you can send URLs. So do like a test message. I'll add you to an approved, and then you can send the URL.
Okay, I just dropped it there as a follow-up as T3 podcast there. But it's on our forums. If you look for the NVIDIA compatible driver test for 25.10, somebody has actually recompiled it and said, hey, I now have a sys extension module that will let you use the closed source mod. So that will bring your Pascals, your Maxwells back to life in 25.10. Now, is he going to continue building this for every release going forward? Is he going to build it for TrueNAS 26? Well, it's a community-supported effort. So we don't know. It's one of those challenges. Like it sucks. It affected me too. I had two P4s that I had to rehome and ended up with an ARC card. But it's kind of one of those things, like you said.
So
like do we continue working the old stuff, or do we have to unfortunately prune some of that and say this is the way NVIDIA's going, and embrace that kind of change.
That's part of the yin yang of also being not only an enterprise provider but also devoting to LTS releases. Is you have to go the way the wind blows. You can go closed source driver, but you also run all of the implications that comes with, which is no 5000 series support and limited kernel availability as far as various versions of it as well. On the flip side, it's like, we want to be a fully open source company. We want to be, have everyone. That means we're going to run the open source driver. That means we're also going to run LTS. That also means some hardware is going to be left behind because there's no longer an availability, and that's just the way it is. And
it's unfortunate. It's kind of the way things had to go. So I don't know. Let's not end on a down note. Let's find something else. Like, I mean, there's got to be a couple
your
more
P4
questions.
into a Proxmox box. That's where it really shines.
Mine runs Doom like a champion. It's the first thing I did. I was like, hey, let's get this thing running Doom. 120 FPS, max details, barely breaking a sweat.
I've got I'm always the pragmatist, I think, of a lot of YouTubers, especially when it comes to gaming, because what is the point of building a gaming PC? It's to play games. I've never been one to, pixel peep at every single image, or why am I only getting 180 frames per second out of this thing, or why is my low dropping to 90, or you listen to a lot of enthusiast channels and they're like, this is just unacceptable. 1% low of 90? No, I bought a 144 hertz panel. I want all 144 hertz. It's like, well, then turn off ultra settings and run it high. Done. And I'm actually going to be leaning into that a little bit more, especially with hardware prices being what they are right now, as far as RAM, GPUs, storage, everything else. It's like, man, the return of the budget gamer that's going to be a heck of a thing over the next couple of years, because as we've seen with memory prices, I'm giving us a segue here in just a second. As we've seen with memory prices, it's going to be bad for a little while. And maybe figuring out what we actually need versus what we want versus what enthusiasts say we need is kind of the right way to go when it comes to gaming, when it comes to even Homelab stuff. I didn't feel like I'd be leading by example, but suddenly I am at going back to an X79 DDR3 system for my main Homelab. I've got a Xeon 6 system with 1.5 terabytes of memory behind me. It's turned off because I don't need it, and I kind of want to lead by example, going like, look, if I can run my Homelab for $400, anyone can run their Homelab for $400. If you want to play games, if you've got a 1070, a 1060, a Ryzen 4, 1500, a 1600 AF, whatever, play games. Let's go.
It doesn't have to be, you don't have to run at max settings.
Right.
Like I played for the longest time, like when we were all broke college students. I was playing on integrated graphics.
Yeah.
Stuff was still fun.
Yeah.
Stuff was still fun.
I played so much Quake 2 and Quake 3 on an Inspiron 2400p with an Intel 815 integrated graphics card. Like, guess what? It ran at 640 by 480, and it ran like crap at that.
Oh, yeah.
But you know what? I played it, and it was great.
Yeah. You played it. You had a fun time with your friends. I mean, that's what it was about.
Yep. Exactly. And I think we've gotten too much towards the, if it's not a Ferrari, it's not worth my time mentality with a lot of PC hardware. When people have been leaning, developers in particular, have been leaning so hard into the Steam Deck as far as compatibility. Do you realize the Steam Deck, how pitifully slow that hardware is, like really is, compared to like discrete graphics cards? This is 4 times faster, and this is $65 on eBay right now.
Yeah. It's 4 Zen 2 cores and what, like 8 CUs of RDNA 2?
Yes, precisely.
Yeah. But hey, look at how many people play games on that.
Right.
And they have a good time.
Yeah.
That's the key. Yep.
Exactly.
All right.
Segue, because I'm so natural at those. Yeah. I warned about this in a couple of previous videos, but man, the news just keeps getting worse and worse. And as I said in my last video, buckle in, friends, it's going to be a long ride. And that is memory price outlook for Q1 2026 is sharply above expectations for what we thought even last month. It's not good.
Yeah, I know the world is scary right now, but don't be bothered. It's gonna get worse.
Yeah.
So, you can see there, the first quarter of 2026, the conventional DRAM contract prices being raised to expected to go up 90 to 95% quarter over quarter. NAND flash going up 55 to 60%.
Yeah. So
I think you said it previously, like we shouldn't expect a lot of relief in 2026 for this.
Nope. Ian Cuttress, who's actually in chat right now. Hello, Doctor. Tech Potato. He's right over there.
Dr. Cuttress. I remember him from back in the AnandTech days.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He did a video earlier this week. He was on a podcast and talking about, the RAM unavailability, storage unavailability. We're talking about RAM fabs that are selling all of their stock of RAM and all of their future stock of RAM that hasn't been created yet, on money that hasn't been earned yet to companies that haven't spent it yet. And that really sums up the whole picture. But it is companies like NVIDIA, AMD, Intel, Samsung, Kioxia, like go down the list of any memory company, buying up every chip possible and every fab second possible. 2026 is sold out. It's February 4th.
There are they are 150% sold out.
Yeah, it's February 4th, 2026. 100% of allocation is going not to you. 2027 is almost sold out also. It's also not going to you.
Yeah. It's a tough time to be a hardware enthusiast. So, like you said, you're leading by example with running your home lab on X79 and DDR3.
Yeah.
Like I said I was going to do this myself, is I'm going to take my all SSD system. I'm going back to hybrid.
Yeah.
I'm gonna show people that this can work, that you can make things, perform and sing and dance quite well without having to spend, a new car payment every time you want to add a drive to it.
Right. I'm running my editing rig right now. Like I have been editing solely off of a TrueNAS SMB share for 7 years almost.
Nice.
And it's worked fantastically. 100 gig is not worth it, but 10 gig absolutely necessary. But if you can run 10 gig, you can do anything you want with it. And so what I have is a pool of 4 NVMe drives in a single RAID Z, so 3 disk with a 1 disk failover. That is my active editing pool. That is where my cache lives. That is where all of my raw files live. Those are automatically synced up to my main pool, which is an 8-disk array of 20 terabyte drives. If I need to access something from 3 months ago, it's on spinning Rust. And you know what? It plays at the same speed as my NVMe because it's all sequential.
Yeah, you're not editing off your spinning disks.
Right. And most of my things that I grab are 5-10 second grabs from a video that are 3-4 months ago that are all on spinning Rust. And you know what my editor thinks of that? Cool. It's sequential reads. I don't care. I can read this 240 megabit file at 10 gigabit, no problem.
Exactly. Well, I mean, it's almost like you're using a file system that works really well at, coalescing all these small writes and doing predictive prefetch when you start hitting the first, couple megs of a file. It goes, he read the first 4 megs of this file sequentially. I bet he's going to want the next
rest. Right.
Let's start cue it up, guys. Bring it up to the front.
Yep, exactly. And so
VIP lane.
Yep. So I've got. I actually misquoted myself earlier. I said I had 256 in my TrueNAS server. I've only got 128. And I've got 390 terabytes of physical raw storage.
You're violating the 1 gig per terabyte rule, Jeff.
Oh, absolutely. Down to about 190 terabyte of after file system and redundancy and everything else of actual usable storage. It runs great, like really good.
That's awesome. Oh, I mean, here's a good segue from my side. So, what kind of NVMe SSDs are you using in there, though? And what kind of workload do you hit them with? They
are,
because you know where I'm going with the segue here.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember which. So I have 4 2 terabyte NVMe drives, and I bought 2 sets of them, and I can't remember which one I actually installed. I think these are actually the budget ones. These are the Silicon Power UD90s.
Okay.
I've also got a set of also budget Western Digital SN7100s, and I don't remember where those are at. But it's one or the two.
SN7100s are good.
Yeah, but they're both on like the slightly more budget side of Gen 4 NVMe's.
Yeah. But I bet what they aren't is they aren't the absolute most bargain basement NVMe DRAMless QLC from a vendor that looks like you rolled your face over your keyboard, right?
They are not King Spec. They are not
any of those ones like
they
that.
Don't start with a Q. Exactly.
Exactly. And this was something that somebody poked in earlier in your Discord server talking about, they had a huge difference in performance on their SyncThing install on their SSDs. So this is one of the things where it's not good enough to just buy any random SSD.
Right.
So you have to say, hey, if you're doing a lot of sequential stuff, you're not hitting them too hard. Maybe QLC NAND is going to be fine for you because you get to write in the big chunks to them that QLC loves. If you're doing VMs and stuff, that's where you need probably something that's a little bit faster. Maybe you throw something that's got a bit of that SLC caching in front of it, where it says, hey, I'm a TLC drive, but I'm going to act like I'm SLC for the first, whether it's 12 gigs, 20 gigs, or, 1/3 of my drive. I can do the whole third of my drive, which is how most of Western Digital's, like their Blackline and some of the Samsungs operate. They will do the whole drive up to, 1/3 capacity at SLC style. Problem is when you run out of that single layer cell space, all of a sudden down it goes.
All of a sudden you're at QLC.
All of a sudden you're getting native NAND speeds, and on early QLC, that was actually slower than hard drives.
Yes, it was.
You were like 50, 60 megabytes a second.
Exactly.
So people were hammering their new system with writes. They were loading their new pool, going, oh, it's all SSD. It should be screaming fast. They migrated over from their hard drives, and they go, well, what happened?
Yep.
All of a sudden, I'm writing at 50 megabytes a second.
Right. Well, you only have 16 gigs of SLC. That's what's wrong.
Yeah.
Yep.
You tapped out your drives.
Yep.
Yeah.
Ian also says if Jeff has a video idea, Kioxia will supply enterprise SSDs he needs. And I've actually got a video upcoming where a company offered me a system, a dual proc Turin system, but they were only going to send a single M.2 480 drive, but it had 8 U.2s in the front. And I went, how am I supposed to review this without storage? And so I said, can you at least include some storage? And they went, we'll see. And so I'm looking for a storage vendor right now, because there's nothing worse than getting a whole bunch of, a nice 2U box with like graphics cards and Turin CPUs and 512 gigs of DDR5 and not being able to run any storage on it at all, let alone do testing. Exactly. So
you're kind of bottlenecked behind that. You got this little tiny, 480 gig M2, and either that or you happen to go out to network devices.
Right. Right.
I know a great company that makes network storage devices.
Right.
But it's not the same as local NVMe, especially when you're talking about 8, U2s or something.
Right.
Going on there.
So yeah. Also, I will state that I beat Linus to the punch by a couple of months, because I was at the FMS
Flash Memory Summit. Yeah.
Exactly. I was at FMS last year, where Kioxia introduced their 244 drives, and I went, well, 4 of these gives you a petabyte, and Western Digital happens to be launching an NVMe OF box with 24 of those, so you could fit a crap ton of storage in this. And what's funny is neither Kioxia or Western Digital had tackled that from a marketing perspective, and both of them went, huh. And then all of a sudden Linus is at the Kioxia headquarters going, I've got 4 of these drops. I haven't had a petabyte of solid state in my hands. And I went, you son of a bitch.
Yeah. Be like, I did it first.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's how it works. Well, I was going to say, if you're looking for SSDs, I got one more little horror story to tell you. And this one was about, lies, damn lies, and SSDs that lie about their cache flushing capability. So this vendor has since Chapter 11 themselves, and that's a good thing, because when you get an SSD that lies about T10 spec, I want you out of the organization is what I want. So this vendor, it had a drive that basically, one of the very important parts about ZFS is your drives need to honor that cache flush command, because, hey, they're going to stuff all your stuff to your spinning disks, your SSDs, and then they're going to send, whether it's a SATA or a SCSI, flush command to say, hey, anything that's in volatile storage, you need to put that on stable disk.
Yeah.
Put it on your NAND, put it on your spinning platters, put it somewhere it's not going to croak if the power gets cut.
Yeah.
Well, this particular drive, it lied about it.
Ooh.
It would accept it. It would say, oh yeah, I totally flushed that. It would just do it asynchronously in the background. So boy, did it look real fast. And for things that, were used to that, like you put it in a Windows system, it flew, it was great. But But boy, did I find out real fast when I was testing that one out in ZFS, and I went, this guy's not behaving like it should.
Yeah.
So I did the test, and I yanked the power out on it, and sure enough, it didn't finish flushing.
Yep.
So I still have this one just as it's sitting somewhere in a drawer in my room just so that I can pull it out and be like, this is an evil drive.
All those logs are still just floating.
Yeah. Everything's just sitting there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man.
Evil cursed hardware.
Yep. We got a couple more super chats to get to, and then it is almost 30 minutes past the hour, and so I think it's probably time to call it. So we'll get through these and call it a fantastic show. Let's see. Was it 89 Supra? Sends over $5 I don't think we did the super chat for that. Thank you. I did try that patch and it works. I'm worried about its lifespan, hence asking for an official fix. Still have the Mark III, by the way. Excellent.
Excellent on keeping Mark III. Turbo or non? Hopefully turbo, because it said 89T Supra. So I'm hoping that T is for turbo.
Yeah, I'm assuming it's turbo. Yeah.
Yeah. Would you keep a non-turbo one, or would you just strap a big snail on it anyways?
I've never had a Supra, but I did have a 94 Celica, which is the Gen 7. And God, that thing was good. It was the GTS version.
All-track?
It wasn't the all-track. That's the GT4. So this was the front-wheel drive version of the rally car. But it was the 2.2 liter non-turbo. And that thing was hella fun. I've also had a Toyota AW30, which is the MR2 Spider.
Yeah,
that one's a chef's kiss mid-engine. Everyone hates on the third gen MR2. I love that car. It didn't come in a turbo, but it didn't need to.
No, that one was just fun car.
Exactly.
Yeah. So in that one, yeah. So I mean, the official fix is, unfortunately, there isn't going to be one.
Right.
Yeah. That is what it is.
I am. Ian Brune. Okay, sorry. I was reading I am. No, Ian. Okay. The other Ian, $5. I got a bunch of DDR3 for cheap NAS and AI servers mid last year. I wish I got more because the price has even tripled on DDR3. I haven't seen quite tripled, but the price has increased even on DDR3. If you're looking DDR4, I mentioned this in the last couple of videos, where 32 gig sticks the last 2 years I've been able to get for like $25. Those are now $250 on the used market, $350 or more on the new market. DDR3, you could still get reliably a 32 gig stick for about $50.
But that's still more than it used to be.
That's a lot more than it used to be. You could get DDR3 32s for about $20.
Yeah.
About 6 months ago.
These are RDIMMs. These are RDIMMs.
RDIMMs. Yeah, here. Exactly.
Yeah. The UDIMMs were always expensive for DDR3. DCC UDIMMs were always a little bit pricey, but even the RDIMMs have gone a little wild now.
Yeah. So we're over $1 a gig for a technology that peaked in 2017. So yeah, that's a little concerning. So we'll see where this goes from here. Cosworth, $5. I snagged two 2TB PNY XLR8 CS34 or 3140s for $240 after tax from my local grocery store, otherwise known as Kroger, otherwise known as Fred Meyer.
I remember you posting in Discord about that, saying, hey, it looks like they're there, and I think it was pretty unanimous. Everybody said, you go back there right now and buy whatever they've got.
Buy whatever they've got.
That's a pretty screaming deal for this.
Yeah. Yeah, 120 for a 2TB even before the increase. Like, you could sometimes find them for like $90, but usually they were 100 plus. So that's a great deal.
Cool.
And then Cosworth wants to send over another $2 and says Ford Escort RS Cosworth or bust.
Yeah. My irresponsible speed comes on 2 wheels these days. So
ooh, there you go.
That's where I'm at. Yeah.
What do you got? What are you riding?
Right now I'm dealing a 2002 Honda VFR 800, so the V4.
Yeah.
Nice one. 6th gen, that angry, irresponsible crossover point at about 6,700 RPM for the VTEC.
Yeah.
Where the extra cams come on.
Yeah, that little bit of rap. Yep, exactly.
Yeah. A little bit of fun there.
Yep. I never got my motorcycle endorsement, but it's not because I'm not a motorcycle rider. I'm a dirt bike rider. And so I spent so much time for my first 25 years of life, riding every back trail and everything else, either on ATVs or on dirt bikes. And I was going to go out for my motorcycle endorsement.
It's never too late. It's never too late. Go ahead and get it.
I've got 3 kids, and here's my problem, is I still have my 250 dirt bike. It's still in my shed. And it runs great. It fires up first stroke every single time, and it's a great little bike. My problem is, the last time I was out riding was about the time that I was thinking about, like, hey, I should get a motorcycle and just commute to work on that, because, hey, 80 miles a gallon gas savings, whatever else. Yeah. And
the biggest challenge with that between dirt and street is trees don't merge into you.
No, they don't. My problem was I was doing about 70 miles an hour on a loose packed gravel road, fishtailing out the back end, having a grand old time. In the back of my brain going, I could definitely do about 85 on this. Like, not a problem. I've got this handled, no problem. And then the front of my brain caught up with the back of my brain and went, really? That's your thought process right now? Yeah. Like, the logical side caught up with the adrenaline side, and it went, you probably shouldn't own any bike that goes faster than this, let alone on the street. And I got back and I parked the bike, and I haven't fired it up since. I haven't been on that bike in like 8 years, simply because of that. I'll probably get on it again at some point, but I've had a lot of cool cars. I've had a lot of fun. I've had snowmobiles. I had a pair of 660 Yamaha snowmobiles at one point that are like the 0 to 60 in 2.5 second variety. You know, two-stroke 660. They go. You're no longer riding them as much as holding on to them. I've had my fun, and I like coming home more than anything else.
Yeah. Well, it is kind of one of those things where you decide and you go, there's a certain point where you go, maybe I need to be a little bit more responsible. And this year is probably going to be the year my oldest slings his leg over a bike for the first time. So that's probably going to be where I go, I probably want to make sure I'm at something that keeps an even keel for the both of us.
Yeah. So like I said, I've had a bunch of really cool cars too. I've had the AW30. I've had the Celica. I had a 350Z manual Roadster for a long while. They've all been great. I drive a Chevy Bolt EV now, and it's also great.
Welcome to the Talking Dads podcast.
Yeah. People know what they signed up for. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
anyway,
we got a couple more quick ones real quick before we wrap
go
up.
for it.
Kevin Neighbor says, do SAS drives run well on TrueNAS? A couple of Z800s that I'm considering using. Absolutely. I mean, that's what we build. That's what we build our enterprise gear on, is all running SAS. So SAS works great. Don't do multipath. So if you're using an external cage and it's like, you can run here to controller A, controller B, just run controller A. Don't run multipath. Not supported.
Again, ZFS, direct drive access, no expanders. And but on the Z800,
SAS expander's okay. SATA multiplier's bad.
Yes.
And no RAID cards.
I do know the HP Z800 on that. It's like a 4-disc internal anyway, and so you're probably fine.
Yeah, if you're doing the internal, like the Intel's whatever C series chipset SAS drivers, those are fine. Yeah. So you won't have an ability to throw multipath into that. Yeah. It's mostly if you're doing the external ones where you buy one of those shelves, you get a used one from somewhere enterprisey, and they're set up for redundancy. That's where do that with enterprise, but for community edition, there's no multipath support. So don't set it up. You'll get weird errors about duplicate serial numbers and stuff like that.
Yep. What else we got before we close?
It's a SAS expander to going to a SATA, because SATA drives work on SAS. Yes, but be mindful of your overall cable length when you transition down to the SATA protocol. So if you're doing something like a SAS an HBA, and you're breaking out to individual SATA cables, be mindful of that max cable length for SATA, which I believe is 1 meter. And that counts. So if you're trying to do one of those spider cables out to an external box of SATA drives, be mindful of the cable length. But if you're doing it in, a typical rack mount chassis where it goes straight into a hard backplane and it's SAS cabling all the way through, you get a lot more tolerance. SAS uses the higher signal loading voltage.
Yep.
Yep. Yes, being a dad is a good thing, Ian Bruni.
I would like to continue being a dad. So
the walking dads.
Yeah.
Yeah. HBA going to a backplane that has an expander. Yeah. All right. That's perfect. Just don't dual path it.
Yep.
You're good to go.
Yep.
If you have wide port support on your expander, look that one up. That basically lets you get an X8 link from your HBA to your expander. Yes, that's good. If it's two separate X4s, don't do that one. That's a complicated thing. Yeah. The walking dads, says Dr. Cuttress.
Yes.
The walking dads.
Trippic says he's looking at the new RAV4 plug-in hybrid. Yeah, that's fantastic.
RAV4 Prime.
I love Toyota's whole hybrid synergy drive. We've got a 2022 Toyota Sienna. It's not the plug-in hybrid, but it is the battery charge hybrid.
Yep.
So it's got, I think, 7 kilowatt hour battery. It's good for like 7 miles total, 20 miles total of electric driving. But what it'll do is it'll kick on the engine when it needs more torque, more power, whatever else. In our full-size Toyota Sienna minivan with all 7 seats filled, plus a dog, plus a soft bag luggage rack on the top with like 12 suitcases and everything else in it, we got 33.5 miles to the gallon going over the Cascades.
Wow.
So
impressive.
So up to 6,000 feet and back down to sea level. Like,
yeah, I was gonna say that's not flat driving.
No.
You're going.
Yeah, we got
bellies.
33.5 with that car literally fully loaded as far as it would possibly go. Wow. The only thing we could have done worse is adding a trailer to the back. And it got 33.5. So
that'll kill it because there's not quite as much torque on those ones anymore.
Yeah.
The hybrids.
Yeah.
Like you got the instant of the electric, but it can't sustain it.
Exactly. Yeah. It's got really good torque up to about 15 miles an hour, but after that, it's meant for highway chugging. Which is why it's so good.
My last Sienna was a 2004 with their old 3-liter. Now, not the most economical, but damned if that thing would start in any condition. It had been sitting in the middle of COVID for 6 weeks in the dead of winter, so we're talking like minus 30 to minus 40.
Yeah.
3 turns, it started. 3 cranks, it started up immediately.
There's a reason the Lotus Exige uses that block as their motor.
The ECU was so cold that it did not power on my instrument cluster, and it would not let me shift out of park for about 30 seconds until the computer rebooted and started. But the engine came on immediately.
Yeah.
And it said, okay, I'm running.
Yeah.
Let me wait till the rest of the crap around me has time to catch up.
Okay, I'm running.
But
Hold
I'm
on.
running.
Hold on.
Please wait.
Hold on.
1 more minute? All right, you're good. And darned if that thing didn't do damn well everything I asked of it and more. I took the seats out, put a tarp in the back, and loaded loose rock in that thing for landscaping.
Yep.
And it did not complain.
Yep.
Fantastic vehicle.
Yeah.
Kind of miss it.
We love ours. It's been fantastic. We've done 52,000 miles on it. We've done Southern California and back a couple. Exactly.
Barely broken in. I hit 280 on mine before I sent it off.
Yeah, no, it runs like a freaking top, and we'll probably do 250 or 300 on it before we're done with it. So, does Toyota Hybrid charge the battery, or is it an engine and drivetrain? The Toyota Hybrid, the way ours works, is the engine will charge the battery while it's running, and it also has regenerative braking. So it does both. In ours, it is essentially a 3-motor setup. There is the ICE engine itself, the internal combustion engine, which is a 2.4-liter 4-banger. There is a front electric motor and a rear electric motor, which both drive equally the front and the rear wheels. And the electric motors are all obviously electrically driven. Sometimes, specifically at low speeds, sub 10 miles an hour, 100% of your drivetrain is coming from the electric motors with the engine as a battery charger. After 10 miles an hour, the engine tends to kick in and can take over propulsion of the front wheels. So your rear wheel is 100% electric. Your front can be either electric or gas or hybrid. And while the engine is running, it is obviously charging the batteries. It runs great. It's a little bit weird to get used to because it's the CVT from hell, in which your engine always runs at 2,500 RPM, whether you like it or not. And so you push on the gas and your car goes and just stays there. And you're accelerating or decelerating or not. It doesn't matter. The sound is the same.
It's just saying this is the optimal fuel consumption speed to run this engine at right now. So you're going to run it. And
exactly.
We're going to do the hard work for you of translating that to forward momentum.
Yep.
Yeah.
But the end result is 35 miles to the gallon.
And that's a good thing. You can't argue with that result.
Exactly. Anyway, you're a couple hours ahead of me, so I'm probably going to let you go.
It's probably a good idea. It's about 20 minutes to midnight here. I have another podcast to record tomorrow morning.
Well, there you go. Yeah, that's right. You're East Coast. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm on the East Coast, so it's a little bit late here.
It's 8:40. I could go for another 2 hours still. So, and in fact, I will over on the after party in the Discord, which you can get access to via patreon.com/craftcomputing. Drop me a subscribe. Every dollar helps keeps the lights on around here. But the advantage is you get access to the awesome Discord community that hangs out there throughout the week. Like I said, there's about 1,100 active members. Even HoneyBadger's over there. So if you want to bug him even more, just hit him up, add him, and we'll get some conversations going, whether they be BSD related or not.
Exactly. And again, thanks for having me on the show, Jeff. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Again, I'm doing my own podcast. We record ours. Ours is not a live one, but I think you got it down in the description there, Jeff, for the TrueNAS Tech Talk T3 podcast. Come, give us a like, a subscribe, watch our videos. We love to do all that technical stuff there as well. And we'll also tell you about, what's coming in the future of TrueNAS and where we're going with this. We do have some exciting changes coming up in 2026, so make sure you tune in. Hey, maybe I'll have to come back on here when we drop some of these changes, and we'll talk about what's going to come along with it, Jeff.
Absolutely. Yeah. We didn't get to the is there not a 26 talk yet, but maybe we'll schedule that for another couple of weeks.
Maybe another time. Man. Watch this. Why don't you go check out the blog over at TrueNAS? Maybe
there you go.
I've been saying TrueNAS 26 a lot on this show.
Yeah.
There might be a reason for that.
Yeah,
go ahead and check that out.
He's going, oh no, it's official as of 26. Oh wait, hold on. Okay, 26. Okay.
26. I made sure we pushed that blog out before I got on the show. So
Exactly.
All right. Well, again, thanks for having me. Thanks everybody for tuning in.
Absolutely. Anytime, Chris, you're more than welcome on again, and we'll definitely have you again. In the meantime, like the video, subscribe to Craft Computing if you haven't done so already. Subscribe to T3 Tech Talk down in the video description. Link to the TrueNAS podcast is down there. Patreon, craftcomputing.store, all the extras that you usually do. Beyond that, I hope you all have a fantastic week, and we will see you back here next Wednesday at 6 p.m. Pacific time for the next Talking Heads.